Hey, what's up guys, it's your boy KCM What Ifs. Today we are gonna be reading the Sharingan Devil, or what if Naruto had the Sharingan and was a captain of the ANBU. So sit back, relax and enjoy. Have you lost your fracking mind? Haku winced as she bore witness to the most heated confrontation between the Emperor and the Reich army commander. Both men always shared different ideals. One preferred victory with minimum bloodshed, while the other wanted victory by eliminating the enemy to every last single man, woman and child. Naruto was a symbol of the peaceful future within the Reich, a place where the former ninja and the civilians could live together as humans. While Sasuke wanted to annihilate the violent shinobi system completely from the world and history, there was not a shred of compassion in the boy's heart. And with good reason, since it was the ninja world that led to the destruction of his entire clan, his parents, his cousins, and a brother whom he once loved more than anything. All Sasuke had left now was Naruto, and the dream of the Reich. And the decision which Naruto was taking was almost jeopardizing that dream, something which Sasuke would not tolerate under any circumstances. So, she stared as two of the most powerful warriors in the world glared at each other. "Stand down, Sasuke," warned Naruto. "This is madness. This is a fucking trap and you're too foolish to see it," barked Sasuke, pure white rage burning in his dark eyes. "It could also be a genuine offer for surrender. But you wouldn't like that, would you? Because it's too convenient and hinders your desire for revenge. Tell me something, are you prepared to kill Sakura as well?" asked Naruto scathingly. Even Haku understood that it was quite a cheap shot, and judging from Sasuke's pained expression it hurt badly. The boy's fists clenched tightly as he tried to rein in his anger. Just as Rei was Naruto's weakness, Sasuke had one too. "If you do this, you risk everything we've built," advised Sasuke. "I have to, brother. I can't condemn thousands of ninja to be executed when they are offering to surrender," said Naruto soothingly, making Sasuke scoff. "Ideals are peaceful, Naruto. History is violent." Haku was quite surprised by the level of maturity being shown by Uchiha Sasuke. She herself was agreeing with Naruto, but the way Sasuke was arguing raised valid points. Both boys were too close to this topic and personal feelings were mixing in. When Naruto lowered his eyes, Sasuke got a predator look in his eyes, knowing he had gained an advantage which he had to press. "Have you forgotten what happened to your own ancestors? Your own great-grandfather, Izuna?" Uchiha warned his elder brother Madara against signing a peace treaty with the Senju and forming Konoha. "Look what happened, our clan is gone. The only ones left are us," said Sasuke pleadingly, making Naruto smile faintly. "And here is history repeating itself. It's a cruel joke that instead of Madara this time it's me, and in place of Izuna you're the one against this peace," replied Naruto wryly. Haku did well in staying silent, fearing any intervention could heat this argument further. Instead, she just listened, hoping to provide necessary input if asked. As a wife, she could understand why her husband wanted to do this and wanted to support him. But as an empress, she saw Sasuke hesitating and swallowing hard. Whatever he wanted to say must be very difficult for him. "Naruto, I have always loved you like my own brother. Perhaps even more than Itachi, and I've always had your back no matter what," said Sasuke frankly. "I know," replied Naruto gratefully, "but I also swore an oath to protect this empire against all enemies, foreign and domestic," said Sasuke seriously, and Naruto didn't miss the emphasis on the last word, and it hurt deeper than any wound he had suffered. "What are you implying, Commander?" asked Naruto sternly, and Sasuke closed his eyes in defeat. There was no going back now. "If you do this, then I will not come with you. And if you try to take the Empress into your madness as well, then I'm afraid I'll have to relieve you of your command," threatened Sasuke, and saw white, hot fury arriving in Naruto's eyes. "Are you threatening me with mutiny? You must fully know the Reich soldiers are only loyal to me," warned Naruto, his fists clenching tightly, drawing blood. "I know, but I will kill you," It's better if you die by my hands than going out there and getting slaughtered like a dog. Kurenai Dash is a ninja. A Hokage. I should have killed the bitch during the invasion. I let my emotions get in the way of doing my job once. Not again, said Sasuke furiously. Before the argument could escalate into an all-out civil war, Haku stepped between the two blood brothers and placed each of her hands on their chest, pushing them a little away from each other. Even then her hands stayed on their chests, and surprisingly it eased the tension a little. There will be no civil war as long as I'm the Empress. Am I clear? Asked Haku sternly, and looked both of them in the eye. Haku, I. Began both of them in unison, trying to prove their point as the correct choice. Enough. Her stern command stopped both of them, and she took in a deep breath to voice her decision. And she would make damn sure she was obeyed. Both of you are right from your positions. So I offer a truce, said Haku patiently. We're listening. First of all, I agree that from a strategic point of view it is not viable to have the Emperor and Empress in one place, becoming an easy target, explained Haku, getting a nod from Sasuke and another hesitant one from Naruto. At least her husband's rational mind was still functioning, if barely. Plus, I'm pregnant, and I will not risk my child's life under any circumstances, thought Haku, keeping the unsaid promise to herself only. This truce could be an offer for genuine peace or a trap. Whatever it is, we have to approach it. But I won't send my husband and the Emperor without someone I trust having his back. Sasuke, I want you to go with him. You're the only one I trust enough to watch his back. If Kurenai or any of the resistance so much as raise a finger to harm my husband, then you are ordered to butcher every last one of them. And this the direct order of the Empress of the Reich, commanded Haku, and more shockingly received a grateful smile and nod from Sasuke. Yes, Your Highness. Naruto was completely surprised by the harmony in which Haku and Sasuke seemed to be working together. Yes, they were friends but not that close. At least he thought that was the situation, but perhaps they had formed a bond ever since Haku helped him forgive Sasuke for that incident with Kurenai. And they both had one thing in common: the desire to protect him from all enemies, no matter the circumstances. When she turned towards him she had a strange fire in her eyes, a sense of determination which he had never seen before. Sure, she loved him and worried about him. But something had changed. It was as if she desperately wanted him to come back alive. You will have your chance for negotiations, but on my terms. Any objections? Challenged Haku, making Sasuke smirk. No, have it your way, said Naruto tiredly. Haku smiled on hearing his consent, taking out a map from one of her pockets and placing it on a nearby table. Fukushima Pass was one of the neutral valleys that was neither in the control of the Reich or the resistance. A no-man's land. There was an old war fort there, a relic of the Clan Wars era. That was the site chosen for the negotiations, if under any circumstances either side tried to betray the other. The members of each side could flee to safety as their borders were not that far apart from each other. But if the trap itself was more than enough a threat, then Sasuke, station 5 battalions of combat-ready soldiers on our border. Chose our best fighters. Make sure they understand the entire situation and react ASAP if the situations calls for. Instructed Haku. I see no problem with that. Who will be negotiating on behalf of the resistance? Asked Haku seriously, making Naruto snap out of his surprised state and look at her with pride in his eyes. She truly was an empress in words and actions both. Kurenai, Temari and Mei, the 3 Kages of the resistance. They'll each have 2 of their own bodyguards, and are also having a medic with them. They are cautious, said Naruto honestly. Fine. Then Sasuke will be your bodyguard. Tsunade will be assisting you with negotiations. Kakashi and Lee will go too, ordered Haku. Why Lee? He's already living a peaceful life, and it will increase the limit of the number of people I'm supposed to bring along, argued Naruto, receiving a sharp glare in return which made him flinch. If the resistance has a problem with it, they can go fuck themselves. This is non-negotiable, they are the ones wanting peace. If they try to voice objection, I'll send in 5 battalions of soldiers and slaughter every one of them. I'm only agreeing for this entire ordeal because you want it, nothing more. As far as Lee, he's the best taijutsu fighter in the entire Reich. I'll be at peace if he's also watching your back, besides he owes you one. Explained Haku briefly. She noticed the smile that came on Naruto's face as he remembered the day he met Lee. Flashback, 3 years ago. It had been 3 long days since the invasion of Konoha had ended. The Otokage had been victorious, and after 2 days of celebration, the reconstruction work had begun. The dead bodies were returned to the respective families regardless of which side they belonged to, the injured were given medical treatment, temporary camps were organized for the civilians to live in while the destroyed village was reorganized as a part of the Reich. Lee could only watch helplessly from his hospital bed as the only home he had ever known got destroyed right in front of his eyes. If only that match against Gaara had not happened, if only he had not recklessly used his powers, then he wouldn't be crippled right now. If only. There's no use thinking about what ifs, they only hurt you every day. Surprised, he looked on the other side of the room, only to freeze on seeing the Otokage standing in front of him. This was Naruto Uchiha, the man who destroyed Konoha and killed Hiruzen Sarutobi, along with several of Lee's fellow comrades. "Are you here to kill me?" asked Lee calmly. He wished he could go down fighting, but his injuries prevented him from doing so. The taijutsu user could not understand why the Otokage merely smiled as he sent a pointed look toward Tsunade, who merely rolled her eyes. "You want to be a ninja again, Lee?" asked Naruto seriously, as Tsunade observed the shocked look in the young boy's eyes. "What?" I asked, "Do you want to be a ninja again?" "Please don't joke, Naruto-san. If you are here to kill me, at least don't make fun of my disability," said Lee tightly, and saw a frown arriving on Naruto's face. "Is that what it is, a disability? I was told that the most stubborn and determined ninja of Konoha was resting here. Not some fool who gave excuses. If that's the case, then I take back my offer," said Naruto sternly, and turned around to go away with Tsunade right on his heels. "Wait." Sighing, the future emperor turned around and approached the taijutsu specialist and sat beside him, as the Konoha ninja observed him wearily. "How can you heal me?" the doctor said. Argued Lee, only to hear Tsunade scoff. "They're not me, boy. The question is, do you want to be a ninja or not?" asked Tsunade sharply, making Lee feel like a little child. "Even if you can heal me, what do you gain from it?" "I will not side with you, my village, my people, my comrades, you," said Lee, tears forming in his eyes, and Naruto surprised him again by laying a hand on his shoulder. "I'm not asking you to join me. Heal yourself and fight me," said Naruto flatly. "Huh? You're the kind of ninja that understands another ninja through the language of fists. Yes, I want you on my side, but I won't force you. Instead, I challenge you to defeat me. If I win, then you'll at least consider joining my side. If I lose, then you can have your revenge," offered Naruto, his voice lacking any kind of hesitation. Tsunade could only stare at Naruto. The boy was a mystery. Here he was offering help to a ninja who won't hesitate in killing him if given the chance. She saw Lee was equally shocked by the offer. Naruto was neither pitying him or forcing him, instead he was giving a fair chance. That was more than Lee had ever imagined. "I don't fight for revenge, Naruto-san," confessed Lee, making Naruto smile even more. "Then you're a better person than me. And it only increases my wish to fight against you. If you defeat me, then I will grant any wish you have, that is if you don't kill me in battle first," joked Naruto, making Lee smile for the first time. "I don't want to kill you, Naruto-san. I only want to defeat you, and if I do that, then I want you to release me so that I can go back to my people," said Lee honestly. "You have my word, Lee." "And if I win?" asked Naruto straightforwardly, as Lee closed his eyes deep in thought. When he opened his eyes again, there was so much determination in his eyes that Naruto had not seen in anyone else. It only increased his respect for the crippled boy. "Then I'll join you. If I lose, it'll only prove you're a better ninja. And from what you're doing here, proves that you are not as bad as people said you were," said Lee honestly. "Lee, you don't have to join me if you dash. A man honors his promises, that was what Gai-sensei taught me. I'm only trying to give you a fair offer as well, that way neither of us will be in each other's debts," explained Lee briefly, making Naruto smile. "Very well, then." Flashback end. A year later the boy was back on his feet, his powers restored. And they fought their anticipated battle. Lee didn't have any delusions about winning. But damn, if he didn't make Naruto struggle. Pushing him as far as using his Susanoo, that was the extent of the boy's power. Lee was going to use the last gate that would have assured his victory only to be stopped when Naruto ceased the battle. In a move that surprised the boy, Naruto allowed him to go back to his people regardless of victory, saving the boy from killing himself. He could still remember how Lee had cried that day, and had joined him. It was also due to Haku and Tsunade explaining how peacefully people from different nations lived within the Reich, and the respect given to taijutsu users that changed Lee's mind. The boy was welcomed by people and even respected for his skill, a feat which he did not even achieve in his own village. Lee requested to start an academy for taijutsu users, naming the art of fighting as martial arts. Other warriors could be a part of it too if they wanted to learn. Naruto had not only established that academy, making Lee its in charge, but also made it mandatory for every soldier of the Reich to pass through that school. It was still hard for Naruto to believe that Lee was satisfied with his life as an instructor, rather than a fighter on the front lines. But he could also understand the satisfaction Lee felt in imparting his knowledge and spreading the art of taijutsu. A skill Naruto respected the most, as it required a human to work hard and was one of humanity's natural talents. But now the situation had changed and he needed Lee's help. While Naruto was busy remembering the past, Sasuke and Haku had finished preparing their strategy and were now staring at him. "Huh. I've already sent Tsunade to inform Lee of the situation and what his job is. We'll get an answer soon," said Haku seriously. "It's getting late. I better start the preparations since we leave tomorrow," said Sasuke flatly, as he went away, leaving the husband and wife alone. "Fine, I'll do as you say," answered Naruto tiredly. Haku slipped her hand through his waist, an action which he repeated with her. Sighing, both of them recognized how tired they were and decided to retire for the night. Tomorrow was going to be a long, tough day. She noticed how tense Naruto was. It was going to be hard for him. Despite everything, she knew he still had feelings for Kurenai. It was something which Haku had to live with. One thing she was grateful for, that Naruto had loved her as much as that woman, and had never looked back or been with another female. He had been loyal till this day. But she doubted he could kill Kurenai, but the same could not be said for Kurenai. Despite all his faults, Naruto was a merciful man. His actions with Lee and 1,000 other people, and those civilians of Konoha whom he spared, was proof enough that he was not the monster the resistance was accusing him to be. He unconsciously gripped her waist more tightly, proving her assumption as to how tense he was. Tomorrow would be either a historic day or a catastrophe. One of the reasons Naruto had agreed to negotiate was because of Kurenai. They could win over the resistance in a matter of a few months, but that would mean eliminating Kurenai and all of Naruto's classmates. Knowing Sasuke, he would prove his loyalty to the Empire by doing just that. This truce was Naruto's last effort to save the ones whom he still considered family, to offer them a chance to live peacefully. She didn't know what plans Kurenai had or what decision that woman would make. What Haku did know, that Naruto needed her tonight. Naruto sat on the soft bed of his private chambers. A lot of things were currently on his mind. Most important was the fact that he would be meeting Kurenai for the first time since their last encounter 2 years ago. He was glad Tsunade was tagging along since he doubted he could put a completely rational perspective with his former love sitting in front of him. He could still remember how she had told him she loved him during their last encounter, only for him to stop and say he was with Haku. If there was a surrender tomorrow, and if one of the conditions put forward by Kurenai were to be with him, then what would he do? He would not leave Haku for anyone, that was for sure. Then what was he supposed to do with Kurenai? If she came back in his life, could they just start where they left off? While it was not uncommon for royalty to have multiple wives, certainly not a new thing for an emperor. He simply didn't know what to do with his personal life anymore. It was too complicated for him to figure it out. He was saved from his dilemma when someone sat on his lap and gently kissed his forehead. Her scent calmed him down, his worries about the negotiations, about Kurenai, about everything vanishing for the moment. One look into his wife's eyes showed him how much she loved him, and it made him realize that he loved her too. "It's gonna be okay," whispered Haku soothingly, as he nuzzled into her chest. "I don't know what I would do without you," said Naruto happily, making her smile. "Me either. I need you, Naruto. Show me." Haku drew her head into his and moving like she'd done it a million times before, she kissed against the center of his lips. Naruto couldn't even make himself react at first, chest pounding so hard and fast he'd swear he was having a heart attack. But Haku led the way for him, gentle at first, something he never expected from her. Just because it was unexpected didn't mean he didn't enjoy it, though. All at once he came back to his body and he returned her kiss. That same gentleness passed back to her. His hand sought out her face, palm resting across her cheek and sharp line of her jaw to keep her close. He kissed the corner of her mouth and tasted just a hint there. The taste of Haku was absolutely divine. She let some of her aggression out, straddling over his thighs as she kneeled on the edge of the bed. One arm went loosely over his shoulders, fingers stroking over his shoulder blade without any kind of pattern. The other had a plan to follow. Her long fingers curled into his growing hair, still uncut despite how much time had passed between now and his return from the front lines. It made her laugh against his mouth, unable to stop the smile from overtaking her face. "What?" Naruto mumbled against her lips, taking the time to nudge her jaw up with the bridge of his nose. He kissed at the underside of her jaw, tasting the salt of her skin. "You really need to cut your hair. You don't." His words were breathy against her throat, his fingers lightly tangling in the lengths of her hair that fell down her back, and he gave a gentle tug for emphasis. She quietly laughed as his breath tickled the crook of her neck. It was a groan and a moan all at once, and it set her body on fire just to hear it. As if on cue, Haku let one of her hands fall between them, pushing up the fabric of his tanks until she felt the skin at his lower abdomen, just where the waistband of his pants sat. He made a noise similar to before, and it only spurred her on. Naruto's breath caught at her touch, willing himself to gain a modicum of control. Her arm slid off his shoulder, trailing down the length of his own until she found his hand. She directed it from where it was occupied to press it over her breast, her hand covering his temporarily until she felt his muscles understand and flex against her. Haku moaned softly and thought about how she had teased him once for being such a good student. He certainly learned fast. She withdrew her hand from inside the fabric of his briefs to grip at the hem of her tanks, pulling them upwards. Wherever they ended up after that, Haku no longer cared, and the look on his face told her that he was feeling much the same. She was bare to him now, her bra having been already removed when she earlier prepared for sleep. Both of her hands went to the side of his head, holding his gaze on her face. "Eyes up here, Your Majesty," she spoke. Her tight-lipped smile was met by his own grin, full of wanton abandon. Haku kissed him without pause, this time with a sense of urgency and roughness, a stark contrast to how they'd started. Her fingers gripped at the layers of fabric he wore over his chest, pulling him with her as she backed off his lap slowly. It kept him close enough so their mouths needn't break too far apart, something which felt unimaginable at that moment. She leaned back on the soft bed beneath them, not a single care given to just when the last time it had been cleaned or how it would dig in at her various pressure points. Naruto was over her now, having been led along by her, his body kneeling between her parted thighs, forearms beside her head on either side to support his upper body weight. He lowered himself down against her, their hips and lower stomachs pressed tightly to one another. Naruto dropped his head to her neck, exploring familiar territory before traversing lower. He took a stiffened nipple in his mouth, sucking at the rosy pink flesh. Haku cradled his head to her breast, her lips parted in response. "Naruto," she called out, a twisted moan escaping her in the calm bedroom air. "Naruto, please," it was needier now, and from her chest, he could hear the begging in her voice. His mouth abandoned its work, but not before blowing a cool breath over her moistened skin. Her hands were furiously grasping at the bottom of his tanks and he helped her along as he sat up slightly, removing them. Bare-chested to her, Haku took in the pale spread of muscled flesh, though she hadn't missed the addition of a few new scars that despite their healed nature, she could tell were only a few months old. Her lips parted, but this time for a different reason entirely. She leaned up on an elbow, her other hand stretching forward to trace over a couple of the marks. Haku didn't have to say anything, he saw the look in her eyes that confessed it all. Naruto shook his head at her, kissing the corner of her mouth, her jaw, her cheek, in a silent expression that told her not to worry about it. Not to think of it. Her arm curled around his neck and she held him close to her in an awkward, strained position. Naruto could see her eyes coated over in tears and his forehead creased with worry. He didn't have the strength to say anything to her, so he kissed her again. This time it wasn't urgent and rushed, nor was it gentle and subdued. Even Haku could feel it, this was how he'd always wanted to kiss her. More than anything she felt the overwhelming sense of belonging, both of her to him and him to her. All those times he had said he loved her combined into that single moment, even more so than their mutual confessions had on that night in Konoha. She laid back down on the bed freely, eyes trained on him. He tugged each of her boots and socks off before his hands went to her hips. There, they grabbed at the sides of her shorts and briefs together, tugging them down as she lifted her bottom just slightly to ease the process. Haku drew her thighs together and raised her legs upwards and Naruto finished the job for her, tossing the tangle of fabric aside. She sat up in front of him, holding eye contact with him while her fingers acted independently, undoing the drawstring of the sleepwear. Her hands slid between the fabric of his briefs and his skin, forcing them down as far as she could get them as he kneeled between her legs still. When Haku laid back down beside the couch, Naruto had already removed his boots and his remaining clothes the rest of the way. There was a noticeable chill in the room but neither of them actually felt it, their veins and bodies throbbing with need. "Haku," he searched her face from above her, arms taking on the weight of his torso. He wanted this more than anything he could ever remember wanting. "Don't." Haku cut through his wandering thoughts, a shallow shake of her head given, long dark hair splayed out around her. "I'm with you." "Naruto," she breathed out his name and caressed his cheek again until he opened his eyes to look into her own. Her stomach fluttered with what was on the tip of her tongue. "I love you, Naruto Uchiha. Tell me you love me again." She prompted him and waited, knowing he needed to say the words perhaps even more than she needed to hear them. He never disappointed her. "I love you, Yuki Haku," it was a whisper against her ear and Naruto drew his body back down to hers in that sense of closeness they hadn't completely had since minutes earlier when their bodies were mostly fully clothed. Afterward, Naruto's weight came to rest down upon her. Their forms interlocked and pressed tight to one another. He rested his head against her chest and Haku stroked the sticky skin along his spine. She wanted to stay like that forever. Naruto squeezed her tightly and Haku lifted her head to look at him. "What's wrong?" She feared he regretted it already. "You know, for once in my life, nothing's wrong." "Nothing at all," he replied, receiving a kiss in return. Kurenai stared at her own reflection in the mirror, dressed in her Hokage robes made her feel the weight she carried on her shoulders. The responsibilities she had inherited from her ancestors, and how much she had sacrificed all these years. Tomorrow everything would come to an end, all the suffering, the pain, that each ninja had suffered would be over. Revenge of the ninjas. She knew what they were doing was treachery of the worst kind. Assassination of a negotiation team was not popular even in the ninja world, and yet many of them had practiced this abomination several times in the past. It came with the burden of being a ninja. Her heart was so cramped right now that any moment she felt like she was going to have a heart attack. It was taking all her strength to not tear up over what she was about to do. The ambush had been set, and even for someone like Naruto escaping would be impossible. And the worst part was that she was the one who made this strategy, using the dirtiest trick available in the books. In order to eliminate the devil which Naruto had become for the ninja world, she had to make deals with many demons, people she would have loved killing for the greater good had the circumstances been different. She would ask him to surrender, lay down his arms at least for old time's sake. She owed him that much, but deep down she already knew what his answer would be. She could clearly imagine how betrayed he would feel. She cursed herself for falling in love with the man who was now the enemy of her world. Despite her best efforts, she could not put Naruto Uchiha out of her heart. Instead, the feeling only grew stronger with every passing day. And it was because she loved him, that she had to save him. And there was only one way to achieve that: Naruto Uchiha had to die for the greater good. Tsunade and the other members of the delegation waited as the leader who had agreed for this entire process was yet to arrive. Frankly, the opinion of each member was quite different when it came to dealing with the resistance. Sasuke preferred total annihilation, Kakashi at least wanted to negotiate. The same was the case with Lee, who still had hope his former friends and comrades would see the light. Tsunade just wanted to banish the ninjas and their violent culture from their lands, send them away never to return. Naruto was the only one who hoped for peace with the shinobi, who was still willing to give them a chance to end this war. It was quite ironic when the emperor himself started this entire war in the first place. She sometimes couldn't understand her adoptive son. When he walked into the small room, her breath stopped. Dressed in his emperor robes, which consisted of a flak jacket and khaki pants. A plain white cloak was resting on his shoulders with the swastika symbol and the mark of eagle on it. A face mask similar to Kakashi, and there he was, the spitting image of the fourth Hokage, only with smooth hair this time and dark eyes. She had to admit she felt great pride in calling the man her son, even if he was not her blood. Judging from the faint blush on his cheeks, Haku had sent him away with quite a nice parting gift. Tsunade could only smile. She had promised the Empress that she would protect the Emperor, who was now going to be a father, even if he didn't know it. In return, Haku had promised to reveal the good news to him when he returned. "Everyone ready?" asked Naruto cheerfully, receiving an enthusiastic reply from Lee, a nod from Kakashi and Tsunade. "I still think this is a mistake. We can just cancel this and go for drinks." "My treat," offered Sasuke, sending a pointed look towards Tsunade, who suddenly found Sasuke's offer quite tempting, only to be interrupted by Naruto's light cough. "Well, I'll hold you to it once we return after our successful trip," said Naruto confidently. "Naruto, while I do want to go, we can just leave this mess, if it harms your safety," said Tsunade worriedly, as he shook his head. The boy was just as stubborn as his mother. "I know all of you think I'm making a mistake and even consider me a fool. You have your reasons for opposing and I have mine for going," said Naruto cryptically. "Naruto-kun, I will go with you. But if you explain your reasons, perhaps it can satisfy the others as well," suggested Lee, receiving a faint smile from the Emperor. All of them looked towards the man as he stepped towards the small balcony in the room, observing the flourishing capital of Tokyo in front of his eyes. He could see that people were happy, humans who belonged from different nations. Yes, he had tweaked their minds and made them forget their years-old rivalry. It was a sin for which he would happily face punishment one day. "I want our children to have a future. If we don't end our conflict with the shinobi, our children will suffer. I know the chances of success are slim, but I want to try because I don't want little Obito to grow up just to get killed in a war which could have ended. If I ever have a child someday, I want him to have a future. Call me an idealist, a fool, but I will try. Because this is who I am. And this peaceful empire which all of us have worked so hard to build should be my legacy to our children and their children when I die. It is what I want with all my heart. Explained Naruto patiently. When he turned to face his trusted comrades, he could see tears in Lee's eyes. Kakashi gave him a grateful nod, and Tsunade just stared at him with a strange look. Sasuke seemed uncomfortable now that the true reason had been revealed. "We're just concerned for your safety," said Sasuke tiredly, as Naruto walked forward and placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "As long as I have you guys with me, no one can harm me. Besides, those ninjas believe that I'm at the same level of strength which I was at 3 years ago. If they try something funny, I can handle it. I give you my word that no harm shall fall on any of you, and I will bring you back to your families. This is the promise of your emperor," said Naruto confidently. That was enough to bring smiles on their faces as all of them started exiting from the room. Naruto was just about to follow them, when he turned around and his feeling was proven correct when he saw Haku standing there. He walked towards her and gave a soft kiss on her lips, as her voice quivered. "Naruto, I want to." "Shoo, tell me whatever you want when I return." "You promise to come back to me?" asked Haku worriedly, tears falling from her eyes as he gave her his trademark eye smile. "Yeah, I will." Kissing her one last time, he walked away hoping that he got to see her again. Kyoto Fort. The atmosphere inside was quite tense as the delegations from both sides had just finished arriving at the venue. Most of the resistance faction had gone towards the meeting hall since they had arrived quite early. Kurenai and Sakura had decided to stay behind in order to greet the Reich's delegation and the emperor himself. Both Kunoichi seemed nervous as hell. Not only their former flames were about to confront them, but in a matter of an hour or two they would have to fight against them. It was this reason both Kurenai and Sakura tensed when Naruto arrived with his delegation, and Sasuke was right beside him. The boy's sharp eyes observing every corner like a hawk, while Naruto seemed relaxed. There were several media personnel covering the historical event along with people from both the factions who had come to witness the pact which their leaders were about to make. Naruto sent a friendly wave to his Empire citizens who returned the gesture with twice as much affection and cheers, something which didn't go unnoticed by Kurenai and Sakura. Before the Empire delegates could reach them, Kurenai saw Naruto stop, thereby halting the others. The Emperor then whispered something to his comrades, who frowned at him with Sasuke borderline giving him a murderous glare. They didn't look quite happy, but after a few seconds Kakashi, Tsunade, and Lee departed towards the hall where the meeting was about to take place, while Naruto walked towards her with an unrelenting Sasuke in tow. Although the boy did seem uncomfortable when he saw Sakura standing beside Kurenai. When he came in front of her, he still had the attractive smile on his face which left her momentarily speechless. Sakura was not faring any better as Sasuke glanced at her awkwardly. The former members of Team 7 suddenly found the meeting quite odd after staying apart from each other for so long. There was a time when they trusted each other with their lives, and now here they were willing to take those same lives from each other. "Naruto, Godame Hokage of Konoha, Yuhi Kurenai, I presume? It's a pleasure to meet you," said Naruto formally, not showing any sign that he once loved this woman more than anything. And seeing him not even recognizing her, hurt deep inside her heart, but she managed to shake the offered hand. "Likewise, Emperor Naruto," greeted Kurenai diplomatically, as she lingered a little longer on the handshake trying to memorize everything about the man she loved deeply. Sasuke and Sakura seemed to be entrapped in their own world and had not said a word, much to the relief of the other pair. "Would it be possible if we could take a little detour? You see, I'm a little nervous," said Naruto politely, making the woman glance at each other as Sakura shrugged. "That would be acceptable to us. I would like to bring her with me," insisted Kurenai, getting a nod from Naruto. That's fine. I'm perfectly fine with Haruno-san accompanying us, but I wouldn't mind having my friend here tag along with us, as well," said Naruto cryptically, and looking into Sasuke's challenging eyes left no question that he was going to come even if Kurenai refused. Very well. Kurenai carefully stole glances at the famous emperor that walked beside her. Hands tucked inside his pocket and a serene smile on his lips, he was the epitome of a collected and calm ruler. She could clearly see that he had changed in looks, becoming more handsome and desirable, and yet the fact that he had agreed to this negotiation was proof that the old Naruto, the man she had fallen in love with, was still there. If barely. "What's so funny, Emperor?" asked Kurenai irritatedly, as she saw him smiling again while looking at all the people that had come to watch this event. "I have observed from time to time that rebelling is in mankind's nature. It's a part of who we are," said Naruto bemusedly. "Is that why you rebelled against your own family and your own home?" asked Kurenai contritely. Her bitterness only made his smile faint just a little. "You're angry." "I am. I have been angry for the past 3 years, not a day passed that didn't make me remember just what you did," said Kurenai hesitantly, her voice faltering and becoming heavy. Naruto looked behind and saw Sasuke and Sakura engaged in a similar heated argument. His commander just gave him a tired look and Naruto gave him a nod. Moments later their escorts/bodyguards went away trying to solve their own argument. "I see you're wearing lenses, a countermeasure against my genjutsu-based Mangekyo Sharingan. Smart move," said Naruto with a mischievous smile, making her stop and stare at him. How could he? Of course he would notice, those deep eyes could see through almost everything, even a person's soul. It was this reason that Kurenai quickly steered her gaze away and started walking ahead, for fear of him seeing through her nervousness and discovering their plan. "Naruto, I'm grateful to you. Once you lifted me up from despair when I had lost the will to live. If not for you I wouldn't have remained a ninja, much less been a part of Team 7 and become a Hokage. I love you with everything in my heart," confessed Kurenai, as she tried to control her tears. He didn't reply and simply settled to follow her as they walked through the barren halls of the fort, and Naruto saw a set of stairs approaching. And now the same person has joined with Sasuke and rebelled against his own world? Is it power you seek? Status? Or all of this is just a game to you? Asked Kurenai pleadingly, hoping his answer would satisfy her. Again, no reply except for the faint sound of his footsteps following behind her. Abruptly, she turned around and looked into his stoic face. It would not be long before everything was destroyed. She needed something. A ray of hope that could make her stop. God, she wanted to stop. Result the tears in her eyes as she looked in his lifeless eyes. "Naruto, what am I to you? Why did you spare my life and tell me to live on knowing I would fight against you, perhaps even kill you?" asked Kurenai desperately. She was not surprised when he didn't answer, never parted his lips to utter a single word. And it broke her heart. Quickly stepping forward she blinked the tears out of her eyes, grabbing his cheeks and lowering his face mask she kissed him fiercely. She didn't know what was right or wrong anymore, whether to listen to her duty-bound mind or love-struck heart, whether he still loved her or she was merely his past. She poured every feeling, whether it be love, hate, sorrow, longing, pain into that kiss. He didn't reciprocate but didn't push her away either, merely remaining still, allowing her to make her peace. "Farewell, Naruto," said Kurenai sadly, and started walking away. When the next words were said she stopped her walk suddenly. "Are you going to assassinate me now?" Looking back in shock, she saw him giving her the same gentle smile. There was no use denying the accusation, simply the knowing look in his eyes was enough to show that he had known. He had known all along that he was going to be killed, murdered, and yet. And only one word came to her lips. Why? Why? Sasuke had dreaded this simple question for the past 3 years, and looking into her pleading tearful eyes made him feel guilty for the first time. No notes, no letter, no sign, he had given her nothing, not one fracking reason or explanation before turning against the village. He had gone ahead and never looked back, afraid it might just make him stop, and he could not do that under any circumstances. It was this reason he had not been with any other woman. Sure, there were casual one-night stands but nothing concrete. And part of that was due to his own fear that he would hesitate if he was attached to anything. Naruto already had that weakness that resulted in all this futile negotiation. He had to be the one who sliced off his best friend's emotions and kept them on track. He had no doubt about Naruto's determination for Valkyrie, but for his sake too he wished Sakura would just go away and save him from this misery. Naruto told me once that one of the perks of being a commander is that you don't have to explain yourself to anyone. Said Sasuke flatly, trying to be an asshole, hoping that she would buy it and go away. Slap. He was definitely shocked when a harsh slap impacted his cheek, one that almost sent him crashing on the floor. What the frack was this woman? That was no slap but a borderline punch. Or whether it was just a slap. Did she just grow some super strength or something like he had read in some comic books when he was a kid? Be a man for once and give me the reason why you did all of this. I loved you, Sasuke. Said Sakura tearfully, and saw his eyes widening in fear. He took a few steps away from her, his mind had just gone blank. But she didn't relent and followed him, determined to get some fracking answers out of him. No person in the entire Reich had the balls to slap him or even rattle him like this, and this woman. When she tried to grab his arms, he snapped and pushed her away, but there was hardly any force in his push. Just a desperate attempt to maintain distance. I did what I felt was right, just like you're doing right now. Said Sasuke seriously, by bending people's wills. I've seen what Naruto does to all those nations he wins over. I saw the slaughter of the Earth Daimyo's family. Argued Sakura vehemently, and what Konoha did to Naruto. My clan? My brother? My parents? Was that right, Sakura? Yelled Sasuke furiously, venting out his pent-up bitterness and pain which he had hidden for years. By now Naruto had made sure the massacre of the Uchiha clan was known, with the true story making the people of the world see how corrupt and twisted the ninja villages were. The tears falling from his eyes made her freeze. This was the first time she had seen him so emotionally distraught. Much less crying. Sasuke never did that. Never. Instinctively, she pulled him towards her and wrapped her arms around him tightly, almost squeezing him, fearing he would vanish just like before. To her shock, he wrapped his arms around her waist and held her. People can try to change the system from within too, Sasuke. Said Sakura pleadingly, hoping he would see reason. Not the ones who the system rejects for no rational reason. Neither I or Naruto wished for all of this to happen. It was the ninja world that pushed us into a corner. There are countless others like us the ninja world discriminated, and it simply paid for its crimes. Replied Sasuke tiredly. We're going to war, aren't we? Asked Sakura in a resigned voice. We were already at war. Only this time it will be a fight till the end. Concluded Sasuke. They remained silent, holding each other for perhaps the last time. He knew the outcome of these negotiations, of what he would be supposed to do. I love you, Sakura. Always have, always will. She froze on hearing his confession. All these years she had imagined her feelings had been one-sided. That the little moments they shared meant nothing to him, that Kurenai and Naruto were the only couple while her and Sasuke were just. He broke the hug and tried to look her in the eye, but found it difficult due to the moisture in his eyes. When the time comes, you'll have to kill me, Sasuke, said the pink medic calmly. Don't. You know that's the only way. Not if Naruto can stop it. That crazy idiot, he still believes, he still cares. He believes in you, in Kurenai, in all Konoha 12. Naruto still has faith that all of us can have a future together. All of this is just his struggle to make it happen. He never gave up, even when I lost faith in everything he held on for both of us. He still does, confessed Sasuke, pride and love evident in his voice for the Emperor, who was more of a brother to Sasuke than Itachi was. She stepped up and kissed him on the lips. he didn't react at first, but slowly he melted into the kiss. For a moment they forgot which sides they belonged to, what positions they held, what beliefs they shared. Right now they were just Sasuke and Sakura. Former member of Team 7, former best friends, and former lovers. Blondes are really dumb, aren't they? Joked Sakura, making him smile faintly. Yes, they are. And I know just the dumbest one. Why? Instead of answering her terrified question, he chose to walk inside one of the secluded rooms. Kurenai was right on his heels, intent on finding out how he knew. And what did this mean for everyone? Going up against an unaware Naruto was risky enough, but fighting against a Naruto who knew what was coming was pure suicide. You really think you know all the dirty tricks in the ninja book? I was an ANBU once, a root for frack's sake. Dirty tricks were my daily source of meal, and all this pathetic act of luring me here was not needed since I know what you have in store for me. Said Naruto frankly, disappointment visible in his eyes. Then why the hell did you come? Yelled Kurenai, losing her temper completely. Walking into a surprise ambush was one thing, but knowingly going into one was suicide. Turning around he stepped in front of her, and cupped her chin, showing how hurt he was. You really hate me, don't you? Enough to kill me. Said Naruto sadly, and he was hurt. I never wanted any of this to happen. But you didn't leave me a choice, we were on the verge of total defeat. I didn't have a choice. Everyone always has a choice, Kurenai. I had, and so did you. The fact is that you still have a choice. It's not too late. Said Naruto compassionately, wiping the tears falling from her eyes. What are you saying? Asked Kurenai in a trembling manner. Come with me. You and Sakura, and all the others who want to come. I'll accept them all, regardless of everything. Offered Naruto, and the gentle smile and genuine happiness in his eyes showed her he truly meant. What was this man? How could you do this after everything that has happened between us? Asked Kurenai hesitantly, as he stroked her long, beautiful hair. Love is an unconditional feeling, Kurenai. Even in conflict, I have honored your wishes and of those that follow you. You have become a great leader, but I'm telling you, all of us can coexist together. Our children should not grow up just to kill each other. Pleaded Naruto, making her smile for the first time. You always thought about the future. Said the Genjutsu mistress, past is full of regret, the present has too many problems. It is the future that all of us look to with hope in our hearts. And you truly believe the Reich is the future? That you solely have the right to rule over everyone? Asked Kurenai tentatively, and saw him laugh. You ninjas truly discard the information you don't deem relevant. What do you mean? The Reich is not the rigid hegemony you think it is. We have a government, each great nation that we have captured has a governor who looks after its affairs. That governor has an entire local government who helps him maintain that state. Above the governor lies the quorum, which are the supreme representatives of the people of the Reich. The Prime Minister or the Empress leads this quorum. Whatever laws, regulations, the Emperor wants to pass has to go through the quorum first, explained Naruto patiently. So you're saying that the Emperor has no power? Asked Kurenai skeptically, making him frown. I never said that. In matters of national security and in the event of war, the Emperor has full authority. But before starting any war on behalf of the Empire, he needs to have at least 1/3 majority votes from the quorum. You can't just simply go to war because you want to, your people need to be agreeing with you or the war is for nothing. Go on. Insisted Kurenai, interested in hearing this information. This was not the picture they had imagined the Reich to be, but then again they barely got any intel on the Empire due to Naruto's strict army keeping a tight leash. The Reich does not depend upon daimyos for money or resources, thereby saving our people from getting needlessly involved in the political games the daimyos always involved the hidden villages into. Every part of the empire has resources, whether they be manpower, minerals, water, forests, machinery. The quorum under the leadership of the Empress makes sure these resources are distributed as per requirements. We have our industries, war machine factories, flourishing businesses, an economy which has a growth rate more than all the ninja villages' combined growth rate. There are conflicts too, but we have a system that takes care of it. And every report goes to the Emperor as well, who usually looks after the law and order and is responsible for the nation's security. That doesn't mean he can't look into other affairs of the Empire. I know I have looked into everything from time to time, concluded Naruto. This is a lot to take in. I never imagined, said Kurenai honestly, getting a nod from him. I understand. And this is not even counting the benefit programs, retirement centers, and schools along with all the other aids the Reich offers to its poor and needy citizens. We look after our own no matter what class or status they belong to. This was not possible in the ninja villages due to lack of resources. Whatever Konoha had was always directed towards the needs of its shinobi. Due to Fire Country being rich, it didn't cause any rifts between the civilians and ninjas. That was not the case in Suna and Kiri when I took over them. Kami, that was a mess, explained Naruto tiredly. Seems like you've been busy. Planning all these ideas must have been quite some work, complimented Kurenai, honestly impressed with the things he had done. She had heard rumors of how happy the citizens were in the Empire, and only now did she see the reason behind it. Oh, no. I just gave an idea here and there. It was mostly Haku and Tsunade. They planned all this stuff. I just pasted the stamp and made the people accept the new system with my flamboyant speeches, joked Naruto, making her chuckle as well. You sound happy, said Kurenai calmly. I am, and I want the same thing for all of you as well. I told you what my world is like, now you tell me what plan you have for the human race. If it's better than mine, I'll die for it. Look me in the eye, and tell me your system will maintain peace and keep the people happy. That your resistance will stay together and form a bond even after killing their common enemy? If yes, then here is the kunai and stab it through my heart, offered Naruto, and took out a kunai and offered it to Kurenai. The red-eyed beauty was left speechless with his offer. Looking into his calm gaze proved that he was determined. Damn, the manipulative bastard for twisting everything. But a part of her knew he was right. She had seen how irritated Mei and Temari felt for joining hands with a rival village. Much less making Kurenai the leader. Did she truly want to go to the violent shinobi world again? In the Reich, only people above the age of 17 can apply for the army. We do not train child soldiers, instead all of the children attend civilian schools first. They learn the joys of life, get the choice of determining what they want to be. It's a better world, Kurenai, insisted Naruto. And Valkyrie? What about that? When you revive that monster, everything you've built will crumble, along with the entire human race, said Kurenai defensively. She was a rational person and all his arguments had nearly shaken her beliefs. Those ideals which she had barely clinged on to, knowing deep down how false they were. But then again, she knew she had made a decision and there was no other way for her. However, here he was again, trying to save her and her people, giving them the chance to experience a different life. I will achieve success, because I'm not alone and neither are you. There are comrades supporting me, and I will control that monster until the job's done. Then I'll seal it away, its powers never to be used by any human for fear of repeating history. Promise, Naruto. You mean you don't want to control the Jubi and use it for world domination? Asked Kurenai in shock. This just changed everything. This was not what Jiraiya had told her. Valkyrie was just a means to an end and not a mass destruction plan that Jiraiya and the other Kages were suggesting. No, not a single human has a right to wield that kind of power, not even me. Because we don't deserve it, and neither can even the noblest person not get corrupt with that kind of power. It has to be this way, confessed Naruto, showing a completely different side of him that made Kurenai smile. Can you really do it? He was shocked by hearing her barely audible question. She never said that it was impossible, or crazy. Kurenai Yuhi was actually considering, and his heart literally jumped at the opportunity. Grasping her hands, he looked straight in her eye and gave her a nod. I can, but I need your help too. Kurenai, I have this dream that one day the barrier between ninjas and civilians can be broken and we can live together as humanity. It's true that all of us have never always gotten together, and there have been conflicts. There were times when we had no choice and had to make hard decisions to protect our clans and our brethren, but I have this dream. Her eyes widened in complete shock when he knelt before her, his head bowed and voice showing how much he believed, how much he wanted this dream to come true. She listened closely and saw him tear up. I know there will be problems in the Reich too, but I believe it is the destiny all of us have yearned for. And that is, my dream of the future. That is why I ask you to take the first step today, believe in me just this once. So, please, 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 please. She was moved by the determination and compassion in this man. This was the Naruto she had loved. The one who always cared about others. Here was the most powerful man in the world kneeling before her for the sake of. I beg you for the sake of all our beloved children. Now is the time to weave all the pain, suffering, frustration we shinobi have suffered to create a new future for humanity and guide mankind to a different path. A pair of soft hands wrapped around him, and he heard the sobs of another person. It was Kurenai. She openly cried as only now did she realize who this man truly was. He was not the destroyer Jiraiya said he was, rather Naruto was the savior of the shinobi. He really was the chosen one, the prophesied boy who would save their dying world. Everything he had said came straight from the heart, and he never showed any shame or hesitation in order to lower himself in front of her. Naruto could simply kill all of them and be done with it, that would be the easy choice. But here he was, trying to take the hard path and take everyone together as a family. His methods were not perfect, but at least he was trying for everyone's sake. In him, she could see the reflection of Hashirama Senju who worked hard to end the clan wars era. The will of fire still burned in Naruto, in a twisted way. Kurenai could now clearly see why Kakashi, Sasuke, Tsunade, Haku and so many others had joined this man willingly. Naruto just had this mysterious quality about him that made people follow him, love him, believe in him no matter the odds. A true leader, one who had endured the most difficult past and yet led them to a better future. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, said Kurenai tearfully, as he smiled and wiped her tears away. You fought for what you believe in, but sometimes we have to improvise and roll back the hard six. We have to believe in our hearts too, suggested Naruto, getting a sheepish nod from her. You need to go now. Take the western exit, you'll encounter the least resistance there, said Kurenai quickly, determined to get him out of here. She knew what she was doing. When the others found out what she did, there was only one way it would end. But now she knew that he was the one that would lead them to peace. Just this once, she would put her fears and insecurities aside and believe in Naruto, the only man she had ever loved. Apparently, he also sensed what her thoughts were and passionately grabbed her hand. I don't leave men behind, my people are out there. I will take them with me, along with you and the men who join you. Kurenai, you can't save everyone. It is up to a person to decide whether they want to be saved or not. Stop trying to carry the entire world's burden on your shoulder. They are not worth it, and I'm taking you back with me. No arguments, commanded Naruto, regaining his authoritative voice again. Why do you care about me so much? Asked Kurenai in a trembling voice, and looked at him. Because. Boom. Their eyes widened when a violent blast rocked the fort. Looking into Kurenai's gaze showed him that the attack had started early. One look at her earned him a firm nod as both of them ran out of the room. On the way, they met Sasuke and Sakura and understanding looks passed between all four of them. So, does this mean Team 7 is back? Asked Sakura happily, tears falling from her eyes. Yes, we are, but not until we get our last team member. We'll just have to drag her whining ass back with us, replied Kurenai cheerfully, making Sasuke smirk. Frank, this feels just like old teams, said Sasuke calmly, although if one observed closely there was a faint smile tugging on his lips all the way. Their gazes lingered on the tall blonde dressed in emperor robes. He was running so fast that they were barely able to keep up with him, so much had changed over the years. All of them had been through a roller coaster ride of pain, heartbreak, joy, suffering. People can change, thought Kurenai, or they die before they change. And yet, thought Sakura fondly, as she gazed at the leader of Team 7. Right from the day he was a Chunin to now being an emperor. We're not made of stone, distortions happen. But you remained the same, Naruto. You never gave up, never faltered, always believed in us even when we tried to kill you. Forgave us when we showed you nothing but hate and anger. You truly are something else, thought Sasuke proudly, as a lone tear slipped from his eye. He grasped Sakura's hand, who gave him a nod. They were free now. And it was all due to the dream of one stubborn blonde bastard. Kurenai harshly panted as she finished catching up with Naruto, who had run ahead. She could understand why he was so quick, since he had many of his comrades in the area where the blast had happened. Sasuke and Sakura also arrived by her side, and what all of them saw made their hearts stop. The Resistance and the Empire teams were at each other's throats, but Naruto's eyes were somewhere else. Crack. Sasuke saw what Naruto had seen and also noticed the violent cracks in the walls of the fort. The pressure and malicious aura rose as Sasuke quickly tackled Sakura and Kurenai to the ground. And the very next second, the fort exploded. Kurenai slowly opened her eyes, her fingers wiping away the dust that had settled on her face. Sakura was lying beside her, completely unharmed. Above them Sasuke stood with his arms spread in order to shield them from any harm, even if it was not needed. As they looked around, they saw the entire fort had been destroyed in a series of violent explosions. Yet the occupants of the room, specifically the Empire's delegation, were unharmed and safely stood behind Naruto, who didn't have a scratch on himself. In front of them stood the familiar figures of Jiraiya, Anko, Temari, Mei, Ao, Chojuro, Baki and Kankuro. It was what Kurenai saw next that made her freeze and take a nervous gulp. As there stood the Raikage, just as agreed, along with 7,000 battle-ready Kumo shinobi. And it was only 40% of the entire Kumo army, but what was most terrifying were the two Jinchuriki that stood beside the dark-skinned man. Fighting against the Nibi was one thing, but against the Hachibi, who was said to be the perfect host. Tsunade, tend to the wounded civilians. Kakashi, get the reporters and passerby to safety regardless of which side they belong to. Lee, you coordinate with our incoming battalions. Now, commanded Naruto, his voice lacking a single shred of sympathy. This was the Emperor speaking, and he was pissed. Tsuanda could only stare in horror as their situation went straight to hell, while Kakashi sent a pleading look towards Anko. Lee quickly urged those two to make themselves scarce or risk the wrath of the Demon Emperor. Kurenai, Sakura, get back here, hissed Jiraiya, and saw both Kunoichi lowering their heads. What the hell, Kurenai, Sakura? Come back right now, barked Anko, and took a step back when Naruto's gaze landed on her. Just looking into those cold eyes made her sweat. I am going to murder every last single one of you. Anko, this is the last chance I'm giving you. I was a brother to you, so I'm asking you to come with me. Kurenai and Sakura can explain. If you don't trust me, then have faith in them. Because otherwise I will rip you to shreds. I saved you from Orochimaru's curse, have you forgotten that? Asked Naruto sternly. Now or never, Anko. Either stand alone as a ninja and die, or join Team 7 and we can be a family again. The choice is yours, said Naruto frankly, and looked the woman straight in the eye. The sheer intensity of Naruto's gaze promised mass murder and an extremely brutal death to Anko. The man was done joking. A minute passed before Anko quickly sunshined to Kurenai's side, her gaze lowered towards the ground much to Jiraiya's horror. But the man was saved from further disgrace when the remaining members of Konoha 12 arrived beside him, their eyes glaring at Naruto. "Been a while, guys," greeted Naruto coolly. "Surrender, Emperor. Or don't, I rather prefer you die here," said Ei sharply, receiving a smile from the blonde Emperor. "We'll see about that. You are surrounded and outnumbered. Check again," suggested Naruto, as Darui came running from the corridor with a terrified look in his eyes. "Raikage-sama, 5 entire enemy battalions are marching towards us." "It's the SS battalions," warned Darui nervously, and saw every ninja flinching. Not only was the battlefield almost leveled now, the SS were Naruto's best and most powerful soldiers. And when he turned towards the SS commander, a mad grin came on Sasuke's lips. "Go wild, Commander," said Naruto seriously. "No restraints?" asked Sasuke eagerly. Was Naruto Uchiha actually allowing him to go batshit crazy on the enemy? "I want their screams." Sasuke grinned as his eyes locked with Darui. Both commanders shared challenging looks, determined to go all out. Just as they went out of the room, the Sound Four arrived along with Guren and kneeled beside their leader. "Your Highness, orders?" asked Guren respectfully. "Don't interfere. Your only job is to protect Kurenai, Sakura and Anko. It is not that I don't think they're strong, but they are people whom I have granted asylum to and will play an important role in the near future. Protect them to your last breath," ordered Naruto. "Yes, Sir." Kurenai tried to move in order to stand beside Naruto but was stopped as Tayuya stepped in front of her. The redhead looked irritated but didn't move to forcefully stop her. "Don't interfere, Hokage. He can handle it," said Tayuya frankly. "He's outnumbered, I have to help him," argued Kurenai in protest, receiving a weak nod from Sakura as well. Sakan snorted on hearing her argument. "You're staring at the man who single-handedly defeated the entire Reich army. He's our strongest warrior. If he can't prove his strength, then he has no right to rule. Besides, this has now become a matter of personal honor for him. Just don't get in the way or you'll end up dead. When he's this pissed, it's best to give him a wide berth. Are you ninjas retarded or something? Or do you have a death wish going against him of all people when all he offered you was mercy, which is more than any of you deserve? Now you've royally pissed him off and there will be blood," finished Guren, making Kurenai gulp. The Raikage raised his hands as 2 entire platoons of Kinkaku squadron stepped forward. This was just the first wave of enemy fighters and they were already fielding those soldiers that took the life of the Nidaime Hokage. The resistance was deadly serious. "So be it," said Naruto calmly. "Charge." If the Kinkaku squads were not enough of a threat, another 100 Kyumo shinobi charged towards Naruto, who had an eerily calm expression on his face even as the enemy was now barely a few meters away from him. "From here on out, you will know suffering." Mokuton, Sashiki no Jutsu, would release, cutting technique. Kurenai Yuhi had been a ninja for years, had been through many tough missions and had seen many people die brutal deaths. Yet none of her experience could prepare her for the massacre as hundreds of wooden tendrils rose from the ground and pierced through every single Kyumo ninja. The Kinkaku squads and their supporters met their end instantly in a rain of blood and guts. "Mokuton," said Jiraiya in shock. He knew Tsunade had interjected Hashirama's cells inside Naruto to save his life from Danzo's virus. But that was it. Naruto didn't have any ability to use Mokuton 3 years ago. But now everything had changed, and the Toad Sage realized their critical intelligence failure. The Sanin's gaze shifted towards the 2 Jinchuriki and the extent of their mistake hit him hard. They had brought the sacrificial lambs straight to the wolf's doorsteps. The Raikage could only helplessly watch as his best fighters were obliterated right in front of his eyes. The way his men were massacred made him actually think that perhaps it was not a good idea to have brought B and Yujito with him. But there was no choice now. If he made his strongest fighters flee, then the SS battalions along with the monster standing in front of him would kill most of his 7,000 fighters. There was no way he was going to lose here. "You fool, you still think you can win?" asked Naruto irritatedly, as he saw the defiant look in the Raikage's eyes. "There are 4 Kage-level shinobi against you, along with 2 of the finest Jinchuriki in the elemental nations. We outnumber you 6 to 1. Said Ei proudly, but seeing Naruto's smile made him regret saying that statement the very next second. "Is that right?" asked the Emperor, as he clasped his fingers together. Mokuton Bunshin, wood clone technique. A total number of 48 wood clones emerged from the forest of wooden tendrils that had just slaughtered the Kinkaku squadron. In a flash the clone army opened their eyes, and each Kage along with their aides were surrounded by 12 wood clones. Naruto shook his head on seeing the white anger in the Kage's eyes. "Now it's 12 against 1. Don't whine in front of me, you are the Kage. Now then, would you like these clones to use Mokuton and Susanoo?" asked Naruto wickedly. Anko sighed in relief. She thanked whatever messed up part of her brain that had urged her to join this side. And now watching the Kages and Jiraiya actually surrounded made her shiver. Their plan to overwhelm the Emperor with brute force had completely backfired. Kurenai could hardly compare this powerful man to the pleading leader who had kneeled before her a few minutes ago. Was he this powerful the entire time? He had no need to reason with her, and yet he had. He truly was an exceptional person. Only if Jiraiya understood it too. Sakura was shivering with the bloodlust that Naruto was raining down on all of them. She saw her stubborn friends were not faring any better either. This fight was way out of their league. With the Kages surrounded, the Emperor marched towards the 2 Jinchuriki only to be intercepted by his former friends. Shikamaru was at the front, Ino on the right, Kiba on the left, Niji, Shino and Tenten bringing up the rear. "This is as far as you go, Naruto," snarled Kiba. Naruto looked at his defiant former friend. He had given the boy a chance before, but not anymore. The others had the same unwilling expression in their eyes. None of them were going to get out of his way. Before the Konoha ninja could blink, Naruto was in front of Kiba, eyes locked on the now surprised Inuzuka clan heir. "May Hashimon have mercy on your soul," said Naruto sadly. Ino cried in horror when Naruto touched Kiba's forehead and the boy exploded in a mass of flesh and blood. Several wind waves circled around Naruto, protecting the Emperor from getting drenched in the grime. Shikamaru and the others collapsed on their knees when Naruto increased his ki barely. The furious Emperor grabbed Nara by his ponytail and lifted him up with one arm. "Damn you for forcing me into this position," said Naruto angrily. He was angry at this man the most. How could he foolishly lead his men against an enemy against whom none of them could do shit? The will of Dash. Silence. Shikamaru's horrified scream echoed across the area as Naruto plucked out of his left eye and threw it aside, rendering the boy half-blind. Giving one last disgusted glance towards the wailing Nara, he tossed the fool aside and started walking towards the 2 Jinchuriki who were staring at him in shock. Naruto snarled when someone grabbed his leg, halting his march. Looking down, he saw Tenten was the one who was stopping him. "Tenten, no!" yelled Niji desperately. Alas, the Hyuga was too late as Naruto raised his other foot and slammed it straight into Tenten's face, splattering her brains on the floor. After witnessing the cold-blooded murder, the others lost their will to fight. The need of self-preservation overridden all the anger and hatred they had for this man, and moments later blissful sleep overtook them as their tired bodies couldn't take the bloodlust any longer. With the small fries out of the way, the Emperor's bloodthirsty gaze landed upon Yujito, who unconsciously took a step back. She was surprised when Killer Bee stepped forward as both men stared at each other, sizing each other up. It was then both the warriors started covering their bodies with lethal Biju chakra. Naruto had formed a dark orange-type cloak around himself while Bee had his entire body covered in tailed beast chakra waves that were flowing wildly. Yujito herself channeled her Biju chakra as the two strongest Jinchuriki of the world stepped in front of each other. Their intentions were clear, it was a fight to death. All hell broke loose when B disappeared and in a flash appeared just inches away from Naruto, his left arm extended towards the Emperor's neck, and Yujito knew what was coming. Raitun, Rariato, Lariat. Crack. Yujito hesitantly opened her eyes, already prepared to see the Emperor's head flying in the air, and having such expectation only horrified her further when she saw Naruto grabbing B's extended left arm and holding it in place, stopping the lariat attack. B pushed harder and the Emperor slid away a few inches, but not more. Naruto grit his teeth as his bones felt the pressure of stopping that attack, which would have sliced apart the head of any other ninja in his entire army. Except for Sasuke, he doubted any of his comrades could have survived such a devastating blow. He even saw B was surprised that his attack was not only stopped but they were at a stalemate. At least that was the case before an animalistic snarl was heard from Naruto as he grabbed the older man by the stomach and lifted the heavyweight Kumo shinobi in the air, and threw him 70 feet away, where he crashed with considerable impact. "Naruto, behind you!" yelled Kurenai. Ei flashed behind the unaware Emperor, his hand already extended to pierce clean through the younger blonde's heart with the lightning armor that was powering the Rakich's body. Susanoo. A skeleton back immediately formed behind Naruto as Ei's fist impacted. The powerful blow sent Naruto sailing away as Yujito jumped towards him with her claws ready to slice his head off. Haiso, flying claw. Naruto spinned his Mangekyo Sharingan, but she was already too close. He urgently tried to think of another way to save himself, but Ei's attack had sent him straight into Yujito's crosshairs. Rasengan, spiraling sphere. A blue ball of chakra impacted with Yujito's claws, which not only shattered that weapon but also made the blonde Jinchuriki cough blood as the Rasengan hit straight in her chest, sending her sailing away. "Keep your guard up," Naruto warned Kurenai, but her tone was devoid of any anger. Instead it was full of worry. "Kurenai." Naruto looked around and saw Jiraiya had trapped half of his wood clones in a mud trap while the remaining were trapped and eliminated in some kind of barrier. The Sannin were certainly living up to his name by saving the Kages and his people. And right now the Toad Sage was glaring at his former student. "You're defending this demon, Kurenai?" asked Jiraiya murderously. "By siding with this monster you're approving of every atrocity he did to us?" asked Mei in shock, and saw the Hokage's fist clenching. "Yes, I don't approve." Naruto felt his heart shatter a little when he heard Kurenai say that. "I don't approve of his methods, but not Naruto himself. For him, I have nothing but love and respect," said Kurenai fiercely, and didn't dare to look on her side in order to avoid the shock that was on Naruto's face. "He's an honorable man who works day and night for everyone. Maybe he has made some mistakes, maybe not all his actions were just, but he understands the pain in people's hearts better than all of us. He is not the demon." She grasped his hand tightly, and gave him the most beautiful smile of her entire life. A lone tear slipped from his eye as right there in this moment something fundamental was fixed. The trust, the bond, the love that was lost was regained as the two of them joined their paths again. "He's Uchiha Naruto, the savior of this world and the man whom I love," proclaimed Kurenai, without any hesitation. She didn't care what others thought of her, not anymore. She didn't care whether Naruto would ever love her back or even want her in his life. For once in her life she was determined to let her feelings known. One way or another she was determined to give him her full support, for whatever it was worth. Anko and Sakura quickly appeared beside the stunned Emperor, followed by the Sound 4 and Guren. Together they formed a protective shield around him and now stood between him and the entire resistance leadership. "What shall it be, Emperor? Stand and fight, or make a tactical retreat?" asked the Hokage, and he surprised her by grabbing her hand. "We fight." With the warriors from both sides ready, Kurenai stepped forward and closed her eyes. This decision was not an easy one for her, but she knew now. "Naruto, I believe now that you are the bridge to peace. I shall believe in you and be the pillar that supports this bridge for you and my people. Thought Kurenai seriously, as her hands moved to form seals. Kuchios no Jutsu. Summoning technique. There was a puff of smoke and all the Empire warriors along with their leader found themselves on top of a giant wolf. Even Naruto was surprised as he saw Kurenai was the one who summoned this creature and was calmly staring at Jiraiya and the Kages. I'll handle Jiraiya, Mei and Temari, said Kurenai frankly, as his eyes widened in shock. You can't be serious, they are dash. I'm the 5th Hokage. Her stern, yet passionate answer made him look at her in a new light. This was not the Kurenai he knew, but a leader who had something to fight for. For long I have allowed others to dictate the path my people need to follow. Not anymore, today I will decide what is best for my people. And my word will be the law. Enko takes care of Baki and Ao. While in Sakura, you engage Chojuro and Kankuro. This is the command of your Hokage, ordered Kurenai sternly. Naruto saw the designated 2 kunoichi bow before their leader and a moment later they were standing opposite their chosen targets, ready to execute the orders and the will of their leader. The emperor commanded his own soldiers to go assist the 2 kunoichi, leaving only Naruto and Kurenai standing beside each other. Naruto, you must win. Against your past, and against the results of your actions, said Kurenai softly. To her surprise, he pulled her towards him and kissed her forehead affectionately. That single gesture easing all the tension in her heart as she smiled at him. Kurenai, don't die, requested Naruto, making her smirk. Who do you think I am? Teased Kurenai, receiving a happy smile in return. Point taken. With one last glance towards her, Naruto jumped off the giant wolf with the Raikage right on his heels as the 2 warriors headed in the direction of the last 2 Jinchuriki. Ei, Yujito, and B stared at the warrior standing in front of them. The trio had surrounded the man and even then he had a faint smile on his face. Ei's entire body was coated in lightning armor, B had armed himself with all his swords, while Yujito had equipped a new set of sharp, metal claws. To their surprise, Naruto didn't take out any weapon in his defense. Instead, there were 9 tails emerging from his back. At least that was what it looked like to his enemies. They were covered in a strange reddish-orange colored energy, were hard as a wood substance, completely flexible as they floated freely in the air. Naruto's eyes were completely red in color, even redder than the color of his Sharingan dojutsu. Ready to die, Naruto? Asked Ei flatly, receiving a shrug from the blonde. Strong gusts of wind blew over the open field, the shadowy clouds hiding the sun as Naruto closed his eyes. It was time. ANBU charged towards the young emperor who had his eyes closed. The tail-like forms came forward and fired hundreds of poisonous chakra-laced bullets. The sheer number of projectiles forced B to shield himself and the Raikage with the help of his own octopus tails. The dark-skinned man hissed in pain as the poison from Naruto's attacks burned his Biju tails. Yujito hastily jumped into the fray determined to rescue her comrades. Her 2 chakra tails were already armed and claws directed towards her target. They fought each other in a heated dance as Naruto's 9 tails clashed with her own 2, both sides searching for openings sending sparks and showers of blood in all directions. Yujito tried to slice Naruto's throat with her claws, only for the man to use 2 of his tails as a base to jump back away from her. B appeared behind Naruto and tried to stab several swords in the man's back, only to be swatted away by the emperor. The momentary distraction worked as the Raikage emerged in a flash, and delivered a powerful kick that sent Naruto sailing away. Hoping to have caused significant damage, the wishes of the Kumo ninjas were destroyed and Naruto emerged from the rubble with a cracked Susanoo rib shattering in front of them, showing the Raikage's attack had been blocked. However, the way Naruto coughed up a little blood showed there was some damage. Amaterasu Danmaku, Amaterasu Barrage. Naruto fired an unending rain of black flame bullets with the help of his tendril-like tails, hitting Ei straight on his left shoulder. Before the black flames could spread across the Raikage's entire body, Yujito sliced the damaged arm off with the help of her claws, making her Kage hiss in pain. Seeing his brother in pain made me furious, as the entire ground started shaking and the dark-skinned man slowly started changing into a giant octopus. Biju Hachimaki, tailed beast's 8 twists. The entire ground got caught in violent wind waves as soil, trees started getting uprooted and getting stuck in that twister which was growing bigger and bigger. Seeing this, Naruto made a hand seal and slammed his hand on the ground. Mokuton, Shinrabansho, would release, all creation. Smooth layers of flat wooden surface spread across the soil. The sudden change in terrain made the 8 tails lose balance as its spinning came to an abrupt halt, making the Biju fall flat on the ground. Naruto, who was still in his tendril form, jumped on top of the Biju, his tails armed with small black dots. Sensing his intentions, the Hachibi transformed Bee brought all of his own octopus tailed forward and aimed it at his opponent, as both of them yelled at the same time. Renzoku Baijidama, continuous tailed beast balls. Renzoku Baijidama, continuous tailed beast balls. Boom! Kurenai and her opponents had stopped their fighting for the moment. Instead, all their attention was fixed 2 miles away, where several nuclear explosions were happening one after another. The entire scene was terrifying and was something she would never be able to forget. And just knowing Naruto was out there in the middle of this life-threatening battle worried her. Naruto, please don't die. Tsunade was tending to several wounded civilians when she saw the Baijidama going off. Kakashi, who was bringing in the injured Reich warriors from the battlefield along with lost media personnel, also saw the explosions. Both of them looked at each other and could only nod hesitantly. Sasuke blocked a strike from Darui while stabbing another Kyumo Jounin with the help of his free hand. Around them lay the bodies of hundreds of Reich and Kyumo ninjas. The battle was gruesome, and despite everything the Kyumo ninjas were tough and outnumbered the Reich by at least 1,000 soldiers. An edge for which Sasuke was making up. For every Reich soldier killed, Sasuke butchered 5 more Kyumo warriors. But it also meant his presence on the battlefield was absolutely required or risk his forces getting slaughtered. Lee was already engaged with Might Guy and holding the Taijutsu warrior off. Frak. Naruto vomited a handful of blood from his mouth. His Susanoo skeleton that had protected him from the blast instantly crumbled, rendering him exhausted. His entire body was still covered in burn marks which were being healed at the same time. Forming a Baijidama was one thing, making several one after the other and surviving against an entire wave of them at the same time was something out of the world. Across the field, the giant octopus also lay bleeding heavily. Its entire body covered in burn marks and injuries. The fact that the Biju transformed Jinchuriki was still standing was quite an achievement. "You really, are the best Jinchuriki," complimented Naruto, and maybe he was not sure, but he saw the octopus grinning a little. If not for using Susanoo, Naruto knew he would have died. His decision to send everyone away turned out to be the right one, after all. At least this way. Jiriken Darapu, guillotine drop. Ei came crashing down from the sky, body still covered in lightning and left foot that was glowing brightly. Naruto pointed all his tails/tendrils upward as the kick made contact. To the Emperor's horror, his body was still recovering from the Baijidama war just like B. But the 8 tails Jinchuriki had comrades who were letting him recover. A benefit which Naruto didn't have. Ei's kick started coming down straight towards Naruto's back, and if it connected, Naruto knew he was done. Even with one arm gone, the Raikage was one of the toughest enemies Naruto had ever faced. Bringing his arm upward, he pointed it in Ei's direction. Banuchi, Vine Whip. A plant-like hunter lash emerged from Naruto's wrist, which the Emperor quickly grabbed. Swirling the long-range whip wildly in the air, he wrapped it around Ei's neck, sending the Raikage crashing away. Nezumi Kedama, Mouse Hairball Spitfire. Without blinking, Naruto brought his tails/tendrils in front of him, forming a protective shield just in time as a continuous barrage of flaming blue-colored bullets rained down on him, courtesy of Yujito ni. Never losing her focus on the target, she attacked the young emperor who evaded her moves again and again. He was faster, more flexible, and those tails/tendrils on the man's back were something that made Yujito jealous. That unique trait gave Naruto offensive as well as defensive capabilities along with great speed. She realized this power was not just due to the Biju inside of Naruto, but it seemed these tails/tendrils were a combination of Naruto's chakra, Kyuubi's chakra, and several genetic mutations alongside the Mokuton power of his. Naruto stopped when he saw a genuine smile arrive on the blonde woman's face, showing how beautiful she was. "Something on your mind?" asked Naruto calmly, surprising Yujito. She looked at him for a moment. Even in the midst of this life-or-death battle he was smiling. There was no hatred in his eyes for her, instead he understood her. "You're got good moves," said Yujito frankly. "You're not too bad either," retorted Naruto, making her smirk. "Cheeky bastard. I really don't wish to fight you, Yujito and I," said Naruto honestly, making her genuinely smile for the first time. "I'm afraid that's impossible, Uchiha Naruto," replied Yujito silently, as they both shared a nod. "If only we had met some other way. I would have liked to have a chat with you," thought Yujito sadly. Naruto narrowed his eyes when the giant octopus started getting back on his feet, and Yujito's body started getting transformed and taking the shape of a two-tailed cat. The Raikage also appeared again beside his two Jinchuriki, as a tired sigh escaped from Naruto's lips. "Kurama, are you ready? Was wondering when you'd ask." "I'm itching for some action," complained the fox, as Naruto shook his head. "I'll grant your wish just this once." The final Jinchuriki war had just begun. Haku hurriedly ran through the dense forests, her fists were clenched and faint tears were falling from her eyes. Behind her was an army of nearly 4,000 Reich soldiers, who dared not say a word regarding their empress's distressed look, because she had every right to be. At this moment, Haku felt guiltier than ever. She should have stopped him, she shouldn't have let him go. But she didn't do any of those things, if only to protect that hope in his eyes for a peaceful future. And just a few hours later, watching the fort burning on TV and the two factions engaged in all-out war made her heart stop. She had made a mistake. And a conversation from their past made her tremble. Flashback. Naruto stepped inside their bedroom after taking a hot shower, his modesty covered only by his towel as he walked towards the wardrobe. When he was about to open the door, his eyes caught sight of his wife sitting on a comfortable chair and was busy writing something in a book. Curious, he walked towards her, and without a word he started laying butterfly kisses on her neck, eliciting a surprised moan from her. It didn't help control her resolve when the fresh aroma of his body reached her nostrils, making her sigh in defeat, and she let him kiss her. Their little make-out session ended after a few minutes when Haku stopped him with a laugh, and got back to her work much to Naruto's disappointment. He made his feelings extremely clear with a cute pout which made her laugh. "You're such a baby," said Haku dismissively, as he huffed. "Well, babies need attention," whined Naruto. "Later. Right now the only thing that needs my attention is work." His curiosity overcame his carnal desires, as he placed his chin on her shoulder and tried to grab the book in which Haku was writing. Smack! She slapped his hand away and quickly moved the book away from his grasp, frowning as he looked at her only to find a faint blush on her cheeks. "Now, that was weird. Just tell me what it is, you know I'm not gonna stop," said Naruto cockily, earning a mock glare in return. "Fine, it's a book." "Geez, nobody gets privacy these days," complained Haku. "What about?" asked Naruto innocently, completely ignoring her last remark. She smiled for the first time in seeing the interest he had in her work. He may or may not understand it or the reason for her doing it, but the fact that he wanted to know showed he cared. And these little things that most people considered normal or inconsiderate were the most precious things for her. "A story," said Haku shyly, averting her eyes from him, knowing a funny remark was on the way. "Oh, I didn't know you liked writing. It's a good hobby." said Naruto happily, truly impressed by his wife's new activity. She looked up in surprise, completely taken away by his praise, and the sheepish smile he gave her brought a smile to her face too. Maybe, he wasn't a complete dumbass after all. Do you like writing too? Have you written something, because I'd like to read it? Expressed Haku sincerely, making him blush. The only thing I can write is a report. Root, you know what, it doesn't matter. I'm too dumb to ever write a story. Joked Naruto, giving her one of his most beautiful smiles. Haku got up from her chair and wrapped her arms around him, surprising him for a moment before he did the same thing. She never missed the pain in his voice, even if he tried to dismiss it with a joke. It were times like these that reminded her that he had a horrible past, but he never let her feel that because he always smiled. She had Zabuza even after the incident with her parents, but he always fought alone. Haku, please finish your story. Requested Naruto, and there was something in his voice which was different. Almost pleading. Are you okay, Naruto? He didn't answer her at first, and simply went towards his wardrobe. Opening a secret drawer, which even Haku didn't know about, he fetched out another book and handed it to her. Opening it, she was shocked to see beautiful pictures. They were so real that she could hardly call them sketches. Sai never finished this story. Said Naruto sadly. She sensed the pain in his voice. Even after all these years he missed the friend who gave his life for him. To think, he had still held on to something like this. Looking through the pictures, she realized they were of Naruto, Sai, Shin and their life en route. It was a fracking story displayed beautifully through pictures. Sai was definitely a good artist. Have you ever tried to finish it? Asked Haku hesitantly. No. Haku, all we can do is live while we endure loss. With those words he started walking away, only to stop and turn back. He had again regained his mischievous smile, much to her surprise. Just, what was this man? Whatever you're writing, make sure your main character's not like me, or worse, I'm not the lead of your story. Joked Naruto, as she arched up one of her eyebrows. Getting cocky, aren't we? It's different. Answered Haku, and frowned when he almost got a relieved smile on his face, and winked at her. Good, because if you were to write a story with me in the lead role, it would certainly be a tragedy. Flashback end. Her fists clenched as more tears slipped from her eyes. She hadn't understood the importance of those words, merely dismissing them as one of his silly jokes. But now, she cursed herself for lying to him that day, for not telling him that it was a story about him that she was writing. Looking back now, she understood that he had always known that his end would also be a tragedy, since the beginning was the same. From the day he was born to this day, it had always been a tragedy with a few happy moments mixed. A bittersweet story. She ran as fast as her legs could take her. She wanted to tell him so badly that they both had something to live for now. That they now had a blessing that would. She couldn't think anymore, or risk breaking down here itself. Instead, she channeled all her emotions and ran. I'm coming, Naruto. Please, hang in there. He smiled. Most people would consider it insane since the gigantic transformed Bijus standing in front of him were about to rip him to shreds. But he smiled. Since you have already shown me your true power, then I shall also give you a taste of mine. Said Naruto, and clasped his hands together. The reddish-orange glow around Naruto started to expand along with the 9 tails/tendrils on his back. Right in front of the Raikage eyes the figure of a 9-tailed fox was born. If that was not scary enough, Naruto's Mangekyo spinned while he also performed the ram seal. Kyuubi's body started getting covered in an armored plating of Susanoo and Mokuton, making the creature look even more scary. I am the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki, and today I will show you what are the consequences of going up against the Reich. Promised Naruto furiously. An ear-piercing battle cry was made by the fox monster, resulting in a shockwave which sent both the Nibi and Hachibi along with their Raikage sailing away. The earth shook as the 2 Bijus crashed, roughly creating 2 giant craters. EI coughed up blood and he was sure one of his ribs had cracked. Looking back towards his opponent, he froze when the 9 tails were raised high in the air. And on each of them there was a tailed beast bomb. Kami Hiroko Sato, Divine Holocaust. The Raikage had seen many scary things in life, but nothing could stop the sight of 9-tailed beast bombs rushing towards him. He was dead, and he knew it. The Hachibi was still recovering and trying to get back on its feet, having so many legs quite hampered its ability to fight fluently on land. All of them would have died, if Nibi had not jumped in between with a Bijadama of her own. Boom! An extremely bright light made every fighter blind, and only the sound of crashes and the ear-shattering wail of a cat resonated. When the dust settled and the Raikage could see clearly, he froze again. Nibi laid motionless on the ground, her entire body covered in blood and flesh. Just the mere sight of the gruesome state she was in made EI want to puke his guts out. The Hachibi went closer to its wounded comrade, nudging her, hoping to receive some response. But alas, none came. The smoke screen cleared and they saw the Kyubi-formed Naruto walking towards them. Rage coursed through the Raikage's body and he flashed towards the monster. Raitun, Rariato, Lariat. Pouring every ounce of his chakra into the attack, he hit the fox straight in the chest. His eyes widened in horror when the final attack didn't even make the fox fly. Instead, it simply created a dent in the thick armor, which was instantly healed as well. In a flash, a tail had grabbed the Raikage and lifted him up to stare straight into the eyes of the fox monster, which had the scary eyes of the Susanoo as well. You tried to devour me, so it's justice that I do the same to you. Slash. Ah! EI's mortified scream echoed across the entire battlefield, as all the 9 fox tails closed in and ripped his entire body limb from limb, organ through organ. They clawed and slashed until there was nothing left of the Raikage except for a shower of his blood hitting the battlefield, marking the death of Kumogakure's leader. And the very next second, the gigantic Hachibi leapt at the Kyubi with a bloodthirsty battle cry. Konoha Senpu, Leaf Whirlwind. Konoha Senpu, Leaf Whirlwind. In a heavily crowded battlefield, 2 fighters dressed in horrible green suits danced around each other, sending punches and kicks towards each other. Both were on the opposite sides, yet there were wide smiles on their faces. Many fighters nearby could still remember the heart attack they suffered when those green monsters did their sunset hug when they first met. That was not a good experience. You have grown stronger, my wayward student. Complimented Guy, even as he aimed a punch at Lee's chest. Thank you, Guy-sensei. You're just the same as I can remember, said Lee happily, dodging the punch that would have cracked his ribs. The Konoha Jounin frowned as he looked at the boy who was his most prized student, a person whom Guy loved more like his son. It had crushed him to see Lee becoming a cripple, and deep down he knew it had been his fault for failing as a teacher. Konoha Daisenko, Leaf Great Flash. He smiled on seeing Lee had mastered his move and had launched a kick towards his head, which Guy allowed to hit much to Lee's shock. Guy-sensei, said Lee in shock, as he tried to run towards his teacher who was bleeding. Oi, you dumbass. He's the enemy. Scolded Suigetsu, a captain of the Reich, as he finished slicing up 2 Kumo ANBU. Lee hesitated on hearing his comrade's advice. While a part of him was worried about his teacher, he also knew Guy was dangerous. One slip, and his teacher would finish him right there. So he stopped. Guy got back on his feet and looked at his wayward student with a proud smile. So you've become a warrior too? Said Guy seriously. Can't you surrender, sensei? Naruto-san is a good person, requested Lee, making his teacher smile. I know, Lee. But he is my enemy, just as you're my enemy now. I cannot break the oaths I took as a Konoha shinobi, and will fulfill them to my last breath. But I'm happy for you, said Guy honestly. Sensei, asked Lee in shock, as a sad smile came on the older man's face. Maybe it's for the best that you joined Naruto. If you had remained on our side, you would have remained a cripple. But the fact that Naruto healed you knowing the risks, shows he is a good person. He's a far better man than me, Lee. I just want you to know that I'm sorry for not being a good teacher to you," said Guy remorsefully. Konoha Reppu, Leaf Gale. A powerful spinning low kick hit Guy, making him lose balance, as Lee finished up his attack by delivering several powerful kicks across Guy's chest and face, sending the man crashing away. When his vision cleared, he saw a strange fire in Lee's eyes which the boy had never shown before. "This is the power my teacher gave me. In the past I used it for my personal glory, and it led to my downfall. But now I will use it to protect the Reich, because it is the future I desire and the home I have sworn to protect till my last breath," pledged Lee, bringing tears in his teacher's eyes. "Lee, but every man takes responsibility for his own actions, that was what Naruto-san told me. I don't blame you for me becoming a crippled in the past, it was my own fault. Nothing more, nothing less, now show me your youthful spirit and fight," challenged Lee. Part of him felt stupid for encouraging Guy like that, but another part of him also felt relieved when the light returned in his teacher's eyes. The burden which the man had carried for the past 3 years was lessened as he got back on his feet, while Lee prepared himself for a gruesome battle. "I'm proud of you, Lee." Kurwa Kaminari, Black Lightning Arrows. Sasuke quickly put his body through several quick somersaults, easily avoiding the black-colored electric current-laced arrows that would have killed him mercilessly. Regaining his balance, he pounced upon a small team of Kyumo genin, kids who were barely in their teens. Slash. Darui watched in horror as not only his attack failed to hit Sasuke, but the Uchiha mercilessly beheaded the entire Thundercloud unit. The poor kids had been running around the entire battlefield supplying their already stretched army, and picking up wounded soldiers. And now watching their heads sailing in the air, brought tears in the man's eyes. They were just kids, and Sasuke. "You monster," said Darui angrily, and saw sadness and anger arriving in Uchiha's eyes. "No, you're the monsters. We gave you a chance for peace, but you blew it. You call me a monster, yet you allow 12-year-olds who are barely out of the academy to run around a battlefield. I may be the instrument that silenced them, but they died following your orders. Their deaths are on you," said Sasuke bitterly. Darui couldn't say anything more, his words got trapped in his mouth as he remembered the Raikage and he himself were the ones who gave the order to launch these kids in the war. And that was when the Kyumo army commander heard 2 sounds. The first was the ear-piercing cry of their Raikage. It was so horrible and painful that it sent a cold shiver down Darui's spine. Whatever could make the Raikage react like this was. He was in for another shock, when the sound of battle drums reached him. Looking up, he saw an entire army of 4,000 Reich soldiers marching towards the battlefield, reinforcing their already fighting comrades. Leading the charge was the Empress herself, and the look in her eyes screamed for blood. "Butcher them all," commanded Haku. Now outnumbered and outgunned, the Kyumo forces along with several other resistance fighters found themselves getting surrounded. The enemy had fielded fresh troops on the ground, while their own forces had been tired due to the long, gruesome battle. Darui quickly raised his hand and fired red smoke in the air. "Retreat." Sasuke frowned when a few platoons of resistance fighters started acting as a last line of defense, while the rest of the enemy forces started retreating quickly. The fleeing ninjas were shocked when many of them were gunned down by arrows fired by the Reich's archers who had positioned themselves high up in the mountains. The Uchiha saw Haku rip an entire man in half, and even for a veteran warrior like him the sight was disturbing. The Reich army completely surrounded the Kyumo army. A few hundred soldiers and officers escaped, but the rest were surrounded. And what followed after that was a massacre that would be remembered for decades, as every man, woman, child of the resistance who was holding a weapon was butchered till the last ninja. Kurenai hurriedly ran through the battlefield. Amongst the sea of retreating soldiers she was just another ninja running around. Most of the resistance fighters didn't even know of her shifted loyalties, so they gave her a wide berth. A big mistake, since the Sound Four along with Guren that were on her tail killed anyone that got in their way. She had already sent Sakura to Tsunade in order to provide medical assistance to the wounded civilians and ninja alike, while Enko had insisted on going to find Kakashi. Surprisingly, Jiraiya and the other Kages had made a hasty retreat when the signal was given. But then again they didn't have a choice when the Empress herself arrived on the battlefield with a bloodthirsty army. Kurenai could only hope any of Naruto's comrades told his wife about Kurenai's surrender. She didn't want to hurt any of his soldiers, much less his wife. That last thought left a bitter taste in her heart, as for the first time the reality kicked in that there was another woman in Naruto's life. But she couldn't think about it right now. So she simply ran towards the area where the monstrous fight was taking place. The tremors magnified the closer she got to the position. Hang in there, Naruto. For a brief second, his entire vision was flooded with the image of a gigantic, furious octopus lunging at him. Before he could blink, a punch impacted with the fox transformation's face. The Susanoo armor cracked instantly and shattered to pieces as he sailed away before crashing into a mountain, obliterating it completely. Looking down, he could see several cracks all across his fox body. The Susanoo armor along with Mokuton plates had consumed most of the damage. But Baijidama, tailed beast bomb. A heavily wounded Nibi quickly launched a massive attack which hit him head-on. There was a blinding flash of light, and when their visions returned they were surprised to see the fox bleeding heavily. Its Susanoo armor was cracking and reforming at the same time. Looking deeper, they saw Naruto coughing up blood, and showers of blood were erupting all over his body. They searched around and saw the almost invisible figure of Shino Aburame hiding behind a boulder, and a small swarm of bugs were continuously flowing from his arms. The ninja was dressed in the uniform of an ANBU captain, and around him was a group of 200 highly skilled ANBU Black Ops. I have overloaded his metabolism with my insects. They're destroying his body cells at a rapid pace. Take him down now, commanded the Aburame. Hi, Captain. Yugao and her ANBU quickly surrounded the struggling fox from all sides and performed a set of hand seals. Doton Jishin, Earth Release, Earthquake Jutsu. Doton Ishihasha, Earth Release, Stone Catapult Jutsu. The earth shook violently as the Hachibi and Nibi grabbed each other for support, thereby preventing their fall. The Kumo Jinchuriki had to hand it to those ANBU Black Ops. Either they were freaking insane or extremely courageous. The fox fell down on the ground quite badly, as rows after rows of giant stones rained down on its armor, tearing it apart piece by piece. Naruto's scream was terrifying as those bugs destroyed him from the inside. They were eating him completely. Kurama, said Naruto painfully, there are too many, Naruto. I can either maintain our transformation or divert all energy towards these bugs, replied his fox partner, desperation evident in his eyes. Because either choice was bad for them. Naruto screamed in pain as a burning sensation erupted inside his chest. His lungs were on fire and he could feel those filthy beasts moving straight towards his heart. Team 2, launched the explosives, commanded Shino. Boom. The Kumo Jinchuriki could only watch in amazement and horror as the ANBU force led by an extremely capable officer started overpowering the Emperor. It was times like these that reminded them that no matter how strong a Biju or their Jinchuriki were, the ninjas were the most capable and skilled warriors mankind had ever seen. If led by an extremely skilled officer, they could be deadly for the enemy. No matter who they were, seeing the young Aburame take charge reinstated hope in them. The glasses-wearing ANBU officer turned towards the two Biju. He didn't even flinch despite merely being an ant compared to those monsters. Yujito-san, B-san, lend us your assistance. I have a plan. Requested Shino neutrally. Wasn't the order for retreat just given? Asked Yujito hesitantly. Her wounds had still not healed completely after all. Once the foe is before you, the ANBU always fight. No matter if we lose our arms, legs or even our lives. It doesn't matter. Konoha unleashed him on the world. Now it is our responsibility to put him down. Naruto was my friend once, and I will stop him. Promised Shino, and for a moment there was some remorse in the boy's voice. The Jinchuriki gave weak nods agreeing to the request. despite everything Naruto was one of them, and to see him stabbed in such a way from behind was painful. But then again they didn't have a choice, the Emperor was too powerful to be taken out in a fair battle. Deception was the only way left. It was dishonorable, but then again what the resistance did at the negotiations and the history of the shinobi world never had the word honor written in it. Whether you win or lose, the means were not important at all. Shino quickly explained his plan to the Jinchuriki, who gave hesitant nods. There was some reluctance in their eyes, but they still agreed for the sake of victory. The Hachibi quickly jumped into the fight, as the ANBU force continued to distract the surrounding fox. Inku Kobor, ink spilling. The octopus showered an unending rain of dense, black-colored ink, drenching the struggling fox completely. Not a second later, Shino directed another one of his teams, who jumped forward and finished their hand seals. Katan Hozenka no Jutsu, Phoenix Sage Fire Technique. Hundreds of medium-sized fireballs were launched by the ANBU teams. When they made contact with the spilled ink, half of the fox's body erupted into fire. Its painful scream almost made most of the ANBU deaf. Naruto, I tried to stop you peacefully before. But you killed Kiba and Tenten. I won't ask for your forgiveness, we are friends. After all, finished Shino sadly. The Nibi launched another set of punches and kicks that sent the fox crashing once again. A heavily bleeding, injured Naruto looked at the boy who was once his friend, and an unending hatred rose in his heart. You've betrayed me, Shino, yelled Naruto furiously. No, my friend. It is the world that has betrayed you. Don't resist, your suffering will be over soon, said Shino compassionately, and froze when a bloodthirsty look appeared in Naruto's eyes. So, that's your answer, Shino. An eerie silence prevailed in the area, just before the entire terrain started trembling. Sensing danger, Shino quickly jumped as far away, having previous experience of his friend's destructive powers. Soldiers, fall back. No sooner had he said those words, Naruto clasped both of his hands together and yelled at the top of his lungs. Mokuton Hijitsu, Jukai Koten, would release secret technique, nativity of a world of trees. Hundreds of trees emerged from beneath the surface, capturing around 180 of the ANBU within their grasp. Showers of blood erupted everywhere as the captured soldiers were executed immediately without a shred of mercy. Even the Biju were not spared, as several trees wrapped themselves around the Hachibi and Nibi, making them crash flat on the ground. The wooden trees had pierced their entire bodies, and were draining their chakra at a rapid pace. My body, said Yujito in agony. Grunted B, to think he was this strong. Naruto, you truly are, said Shino in shock. The Susanoo had faded, and so had the Mokuton plating, leaving only a smaller version of the fox, which was barely standing. Blood leaked all over its body, but even then everyone knew who the winner of this battle was. At least that's what it seemed before Shino closed his eyes, and signaled Hachibi and Nibi. The remaining 20 ANBU along with their captain started beating a hasty retreat. They were running so fast as if the death god was behind their asses. Suspiciously, Naruto turned towards Kumo's two Jinchuriki, only to see them grinning. They're really gonna do it, said Kurama in horror. Do what? Asked Naruto quickly, already fearing the answer. The answer to his question was revealed when the two Biju in front of him started increasing in size. From experience he knew they were preparing a Bijidama. The largest one both of them could form. What was confusing was the fact that their mouths were closed and they had not aimed in his direction. A horrible feeling erupted in his gut, as he realized what they were doing. Stop them, Naruto. If they blow themselves up, every living soul in a 200-mile radius will be wiped out from the face of the earth, warned Kurama urgently. Naruto made his fox transformation get back on its feet. He had barely recovered from the earlier damage he suffered. His body was lethally injured. He tried to form another Bijidama to stop the Biju in front of him from committing suicide, and thereby finishing a mass extinction. He coughed up blood more violently, as the half Bijidama he had formed vanished. The Hachibi and Nibi had reached their greatest size. Their bellies stretched to the limits due to the abominable Bijadama brewing inside of them. When they gave him sad smiles, he knew they were really going through with it. Kurama was shocked when Naruto made their fox transformation stand and ran quickly towards the suicidal Bijus. "What are you doing?" asked the fox nervously, and saw his partner smirking. "Doing the right thing." Kurama's eyes widened in shock as he understood the meaning behind those words. Right on cue, Naruto made their fox transformation leap straight into the air and crash right on top of the surprised Hachibi and Nibi. The Emperor quickly shrouded the 9 tails over the 2 Biju beneath him, completely covering them under his shadow. "Naruto, you. I promised my people that I will bring them home safely. And I intend to keep my promise this time," confessed Naruto, a resigned smile arriving on his lips. A lone tear slipped from the Biju's eyes as they felt an extreme sensation rising beneath them. The heat was crucifying, as a blinding light started spreading. "I'm glad I got to know you, Uchiha Naruto," said Kurama proudly. "Likewise, my friend." He laid the head of his fox transformation over the other 2 Biju, as the 3 of them shared knowing looks. His entire life flashed before his eyes, as he remembered all the people that had stood by his side, and helped in fulfilling his dream. "You're my son, Naruto. I'll always have your back, kid. The flame of youth burns brightly in you. We're brothers. And I will slaughter anyone who dares raise a finger towards you or our Reich. I have always loved you, Naruto. And always will. You're an incredible person, my love. I shall be with you forever." He smiled as memories of Tsunade, Kakashi, Lee, Sasuke, Kurenai, and Haku came to his heart. He felt at peace. The dream that was born 3 years ago was now finally a reality. The Reich would live on. "Everyone, you are the future of this world. I leave the rest to you. Atarashi, Nova." Kurenai and her comrades were violently blown away by an extremely powerful shock wave. Showers of water erupted from the ground, the soil cracked completely, even the clouds in the sky rumbled due to the gigantic explosion that obliterated the entire battlefield where the Bijus were fighting. An unending rain of fire, blood, guts, fell down from the skies, drenching the Hokage in it. Her lips trembled, her legs lost all strength as she collapsed on the ground. Tears fell frowning at her eyes as her breathing became heavy and her vision clouded. "Naruto." The cool sea breeze hit him like a soft whisper, rustling his blonde hair. The feeling of the gentle sand beneath his feet made him sigh constantly, and the mere sight of the vast endless ocean was perhaps the most beautiful thing in the world. Just being in this place made him forget everything. All the things he had done and faced didn't matter, nor did his sins or good deeds matter anymore. If this was heaven, then he thanked whichever god came up with the idea of building this Elysium. Even if he was idly sitting on top of the rocks, simply basking in the beauty of the ocean made him smile. Neither was he an emperor, or an ANBU captain, or a ninja, and many more things whose responsibilities he had shouldered all his life. Now, he was simply Naruto. And he was free. A part of him did worry about the people he had left behind, especially his wife. But he knew he had made the right decision when he made his last stand. He had protected the people close to his heart. And maybe he was being selfish, but he felt himself relaxing for the first time in his entire life. His only regret would be his failure in fulfilling Haku's wish of having their child one day, but maybe this was for the best because Kami knew he would be a terrible father. Still, he could try to imagine what it would have been like if he ever became a father. And right there he thanked Kami for letting him die, because he probably couldn't have done what he did if had a son waiting for him back home. And he would never sacrifice his child for anything, even the Reich, and that would have conflicted with his duties as an emperor. No use thinking about what ifs. Thought Naruto dismissively. It was done, and as a man he now had to face the consequences of his actions. Quite a view, isn't it? Blinking in surprise, he turned around to discover the offender who disturbed his peace. Whatever words he wanted to say died down in his throat, and he started laughing out hysterically, much to the worry of new arrivals, making them wonder about his sanity. Naruto looked up at the sky and laughed again, but there was no humor in his voice. "If this is your idea of karmic justice, then I'd say you are even more fracked up than me," said Naruto with another laugh. He didn't even react, and the two of them came forward and sat beside him, each of them on either side. It was as if they feared he would run off at any moment, if only they knew that there was no running away in hell. He was wrong, because he was not in heaven. "You're early, son," said Minato calmly, and sighed on seeing his wife trembling while stealing short glances towards their grown-up son. If not for his smooth, long blonde hair, Naruto could have passed off as an exact shadow clone of his father. Both the parents were struggling within themselves not to just reach out and hug the life out of him, to feel that he was real, and this was not another one of their countless imagined reunions both him and his wife had envisioned for years. "Well, the tickets for the underworld were running short. I booked an early ride," replied Naruto sharply, and Minato had to bite his lip hard so as not to laugh out loud. "He's definitely your son, Kushina," thought Minato happily, and saw tears welling up in his wife's eyes. Naruto never looked at each of them and simply settled for staring at the ocean, a move which deeply hurt the people beside him. "So, who's it gonna be? You or the silent movie here? Let's just get this over with," said Naruto bitterly. His tone was condensing and sharper than any blade. "What are you talking about, son?" asked Minato hesitantly. "I'm really not in the mood. If you're gonna torture me, then make up your fracking minds and get it over with." The older blonde winced on hearing that remark, and seeing his wife tear up made him sigh. He had known all along how this meeting was going to proceed, but Kushina was naive and held on to her hope that their merciful son would not be too hard on his creators. Apparently, she was wrong by a long shot. "You really think that's low for us? That will torture you. How could you even say that, Sochi, son?" said Kushina in shock. Minato tensed when he saw Naruto's fists clenching. He could feel the sea of anger bubbling inside his son. He was actually surprised by the level of restraint shown by Naruto. The boy's capacity for tolerance was quite good. But even that had its limits, and Kushina's final word, which was said with so much love and affection, was the last straw. "You've already done it once before, Kushina. It wouldn't surprise me if you wanted to try it again," said Naruto sharply. "It hurt." Naruto saw his words had cut sharper than any blade in the universe. He could see the shock, pain, disbelief, regret in her eyes, and in a twisted way it satisfied him. "It's painful, isn't it? To have someone deny your existence? It hurts deeper than any wound. It tears you apart. And this pain never goes away," said Naruto sadly. He sighed on seeing the state his creators were in. It was actually pitiful. He had dreamed of this moment all his life. How he would scream, cry, resort to violence in so many more cruel ways, but just looking at the pathetic state these two were in made him stop. It was no use torturing someone after death. All the emotional baggage must be left behind to start anew. That was what he believed, even for someone like them. "You're too soft." He inwardly smiled as he could hear Sasuke still taunting him for a trait which his best friend considered to be a weakness. A trait which got the emperor killed in the first place, but how could Sasuke understand that this trait was a part of who Naruto Uchiha really was? And there was no use shrugging it off, because it was not possible. "You can relax, Yondaime. I'm not going to grant you mercy by hitting you. It would be too easy, and besides I don't like hitting my elders," said Naruto calmly. With those words he got up and started walking away, only to be stopped by his biological creator's desperate cry. "Naruto, please just talk to me one last time," pleaded Kushina, and he closed his eyes. It was taking all his willpower not to just crumble. That was the power this woman had over him despite being absent all his life and condemning him with a curse. And he cursed himself for this weakness. Turning back towards them, he was relieved to see Minato knew exactly what his son was hinting at. Now, Naruto knew where he got that intelligence from, and the emotional mess that was Kushina was a clear hint as to where he got his emotional vulnerabilities from. Love and forgiveness can't be bought by mere words, Kushina. For your sake, I hope you were not this delusional when you were alive. Each of us have to live with the consequences of our actions. Just as I can't receive forgiveness from the people whose lives I've ruined, you also can't expect that pardon from me. Even my mercy has limits. Explained Naruto patiently, trying to make the message clear in the least painful way possible and hating himself for doing such a thing at the same time because somehow he didn't believe in the words he was saying. Kushina wanted to say something more in her defense, when Minato's next words stopped both mother and son from getting into a futile emotional argument. The child is the father of the man, said Yondaime, a knowing smile arriving on his lips. One which was mirrored by his son. Huh, what do you know? The old man's smarter than he looks, said Naruto sarcastically, eliciting a shy smile and faint blush from Minato. It was actually quite scary how both of them were so alike, but Naruto's thoughts were somewhere else. Do I always look that idiotic and blush like a schoolgirl? No wonder Sasuke scolds me every time, and Haku loves it by calling me cute. Thought Naruto curiously. Kushina was actually quite shocked by the way things were happening. She had imagined Naruto getting along well with her, but apparently he was more of his father's son than his mother's. Even if there was bitterness and pain evident in Naruto's eyes, she also saw her son and Minato sharing understanding looks. It made her happy and jealous at the same time. If this was not enough to rattle her, Minato's next move completely swept the ground from beneath her feet. The tall Hokage got back on his feet and walked towards his son, who didn't move or show any sign of retreat. There was a fraction of a second where Naruto's eyes softened and Minato seized it to wrap his arms around his son, pulling him into a tight hug. I understand. That was all the father said to his son, the words barely more than a whisper, but it meant everything. Naruto couldn't actually believe that this was happening. Here was the man whom he resented the most in the world, even more than Danzo. And yet, this person understood him. Better than Kushina. Better than Kakashi, Tsunade, Haku, Kurenai, and every other person in his life. Minato Namikaze understood. He didn't ask for forgiveness since there was none to receive, and neither did the man think he deserved it. He didn't make arguments like his wife, or scold/blast out at his son for destroying Konoha like a Hokage should have. Instead, he just said 2 words. I understand. Kushina's eyes literally popped out of their sockets when Naruto raised his arms and hugged his father back with equal affection. Tears were falling from his eyes, as he embraced the man even more tightly. Both gestures were repeated by Minato as he felt his own cheeks getting wet. I missed you, Dad, said Naruto tearfully, as Minato gently rubbed his back. I missed you too, son. I'm not sorry for what I did, but I'm proud of the man you became. All I wanted was my son to be the peacemaker who brings stability to our war-torn world, and you did that. You overcame all the odds, never gave up despite the tragic life you had to live. No father could ever have a better son than you, said Minato proudly, making Naruto smile as he felt the sincerity behind those words. Being an emperor had made him finally understand the burden of leadership. The fact that he just gave his life to protect his people made him realize the choice Minato had to make as a leader himself. This feeling could only be understood by 2 leaders, and hearing his father say those words despite everything both of them had done gave him peace. At this moment, he understood that both of them were the same. Maybe Naruto couldn't do the same thing to his son, or maybe he could if the circumstances forced him to. He was no longer that naive teenage Otokage who saw the world in black and white colors, because there was another side. The shades of gray. A place where nothing was absolutely right or absolutely wrong, just the right thing remained. And Uchiha Naruto and Minato Namikaze were men of gray, people who made tough choices and stood by it no matter what. Neither of them had a right to judge each other or risk being proven as hypocrites. The final knot in the Emperor's chest eased as he smiled. The emotional baggage he had carried his entire life was easing off, and it made him happy. Life was too short for grudges, and even then he had shown mercy to the villagers of Konoha who treated him worse than a stray dog. There were many among his supporters who had considered his move as foolish, if only they could understand that by doing so he was setting himself free. Breaking away from the hug, both father and son shared understanding nods. With a short sigh and a shake of his head, he turned towards a trembling redhead who had witnessed the entire scene with tears of joy and sorrow falling from her eyes. "You need a special invitation, you miserable woman," asked Naruto impatiently, but there was no anger in his voice. He frowned when the woman lay still as a lifeless rock, looking at him with those beautiful violet eyes. It was only when he raised his arms did the message register in her brain, getting her out of shock. In a flash which would have put even the yondaime to shame, she launched forward and jumped straight into his arms. Minato raised one of his eyebrows in surprise when Naruto caught Kushina easily within his arms. She had slammed into his chest so hard that would have made most men fall flat on their asses, but the Emperor had held his ground. It just showed that their son was stronger than them, both physically and emotionally as well. Naruto felt a little embarrassed and happy at the same time when his crying mother laid soft kisses all over his face. Making up for all the years they had been apart from each other, and joined together again by death. "I'm really sorry, Sochi. For everything I put you through. I don't deserve to be your mother, but I've always loved you. Naruto, you are my child and I'll love you till the end of time even if you hate me. I wish I could take back everything, I'm so dash." Her emotional breakdown was stopped when he looked into her eyes before laying a soft kiss on her forehead that relieved her of the emotional trauma burning in her heart. "It's okay. I forgive you, Mom," said Naruto sincerely, knowing very well how important this action was for her soul. She needed this more than anything, and Naruto himself felt freed from his burden by saying those words to her. With Minato it had been different. His father didn't need forgiveness since he did what a leader had to do, and neither was Naruto in the mood to give forgiveness if the man ever asked. It was an unsaid pact between the two men, but Kushina needed this. He smiled and cradled her affectionately as she cried openly in his arms. And if death was this beautiful, then he didn't mind dying at all. "I'm home, Mother." Toby lazily moved his legs as he sat patiently on top of a boulder. Below him copies of White Zetsu were mopping up the barely breathing forms of Yujito and B. A sly smile came on the Akatsuki leader's face as he had finally captured Kumo's Biju as well. And that too without any kind of effort on his part. His eyes shifted towards the frozen corpse of Naruto. The boy was a mess of blood and guts spilled over. His entire body was barely kept in one piece due to the small wooden gasket he had been frozen in. "Is he dead?" asked Black Zetsu nervously, making the older Uchiha laugh. "By all means he should be. The boy was definitely suicidal when he made that move. Still, he exceeded my expectations by a very large margin," said Toby frankly, quite impressed with Naruto's powers. The boy was a naive fool, but he was definitely not a pushover either. "You saved his life, didn't you?" asked White Zetsu. Toby merely smirked as he walked towards the boy who was currently hanging between life and death. It would be so easy to silence him right now, but he couldn't do that. "He may be an idiot, but I have a use for him. That usefulness is yet to end, so I saved his life for now. I'll take it back when I need it. I sense people coming," said White Zetsu worriedly. "Take the Hachibi and Nibi to our secret base, we will seal them," commanded Toby. "What about Kyubi? We can just take him with us too, it's not like he is in any position to resist," argued Black Zetsu, and was surprised when Toby shook his head. "I fear all the resistance has done is awaken a sleeping giant. The Empire will be out for blood. And I really don't want to get the Akatsuki involved in this mess. It's better if we stay out of the crosshairs of both sides while doing our work. When the time's right, we'll take both of them down." I doubt Naruto will ever wake up from his sleep, besides I already have a contingency plan in case he dies. Explained Toby nonchalantly, if you say so. Said White Zetsu, as he instructed his fellow clone brothers to finish the assigned job. How long before we are ready for war, Zetsu? Asked Toby seriously. Just a few more months. With Yamato's help our work has been greatly reduced and we are ahead of our deadline. You made a smart move by capturing him all those years ago. Complimented Black Zetsu, earning a nod from the Uchiha. The war between the Empire and Resistance will become more bloody now with this betrayal. Let them fight each other and weaken themselves, it'll only make our job much easier and less tedious, instructed Toby, as a sly smile arrived on Black Zetsu's face. I'm surprised neither side realized it till now. Said Black Zetsu bemusedly, and what would that might be, wise Zetsu? Asked Toby innocently, but the look in his eyes was that of a cunning fox. And it was proven true by his comrade's next words. That with the exception of Kurenai Yuhi, the rest of the leaders of the resistance are your pawns. Waging a losing war on your orders. And in the darkness of the night, a pair of deadly Mangekyo Sharingan came to life. And that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it and until next time. Later.